Hello, hello.
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 Hey, everyone. Happy Saturday. It's unusual for us to do a Saturday live.
Yes, we're a little, slightly thin on the ground because unfortunately 2 of us aren't feeling very well. So there won't be any soup today. No soup, it's off the menu. And Bugsy is not feeling too great either, so she's down in the chat. Bugsy, I hope you feel better in a moment, darling.
Tits will be visiting us today, though.
Oh, goody.
And we also may have a surprise guest. We're not sure yet.
Good, good.
Are we going to...
I've not heard whether Clara might pop across and join us. He's currently been live.
Yeah, I saw that.
For the last sort of hour and a half, getting on for 2 hours, talking about his experience of being at the Karen Reid trial. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, mostly because I don't want it to affect any questions I might ask him if he does pop in. So fingers crossed.
Are we going to open panel also today or no?
Yeah, I'm fine with us opening panel.
I'm fine with this open panel, but I will say to people, we are talking about the trials that you're watching, not anything else. So, don't be offended if you come up and start chatting about something else and we decide to move on, because we don't do this very often. So we really want to stick to the subject of what trials are you watching and why.
Yes. Where do we start? Oh, I know what we wanted to start with is we've got 2 membership milestones I want to recognize. The first one is Tangeray herself. Surprise, surprise. She's been a member for 9 months.
Day one, baby.
Tanga. She's been here since day one. And then also Popcorn and M&M's has been a member for 8 months. And she says she's trying to behave.
We'll have none of that.
Well-behaved women rarely make history.
That's true. That's very true. So what trials have people been watching, just out of interest? Who's copying? Who's following what?
Well, I personally started following Karen Reid after hearing you talk about it, Pearl, because like I think I said the other day, I was just hearing like Turtle Boy, and I seriously thought it was about Dolly and like, digs that maybe Queen Bee was taking or something. I was really out of the loop. But then when you started talking about it, I'm like, hold up, and I went and caught up real quick because it's just right up my alley, this kind of stuff where there's all kinds of aspects to it. But I also went into it, without any real preconceived. I keep hearing feedback. That's why I keep stuttering. I wanted to kind of see it from a juror's perspective, sort of. I can't say that it's completely like that because I did listen to some stuff that kind of brought me up to what's been happening so far.
Yeah, I haven't watched that trial. I guess because I got into the Chad Daybell trial because it was going on, at the same time.
Right.
So I haven't got into that. So you and Pearl will have to speak on that.
Yeah, they wrapped up the Daybell trial. Did
In
you guys
9
see
weeks.
the picture
Yeah.
of him, his booking photo, when he
I
got
couldn't believe it. He looked like he just won the lottery.
deranged?
What the hell is wrong with that man?
Well, it's so strange because the whole trial he sat with one face only. Never made. It was just like he had no emotion whatsoever.
I mean,
He
they'd
just sat
obviously
there.
instructed him. They'd obviously instructed him not to show any emotion because obviously his natural emotion is to laugh at these things or smile at them. I can
Yeah.
imagine his defense lawyer going, "Guy, you're already in enough trouble. For the love of God, keep your face straight."
Yes. That wouldn't have been a lot worse on him had he been sitting there smirking like Lori did in her trial. She did a whole lot of that.
Yeah, she didn't even have the sense to follow that instruction. I mean, that woman is just, what can you say? I mean, they are the perfect couple. It's a shame they had to meet though and wreck the lives of so many people around them.
Now, I don't know anything about the Susanna Morales trial.
I don't either. I haven't heard of that
No,
one.
that's a new one on me, but I'm going to go and look it up after.
I will.
We should start watching that serial killer's trial in Florida.
Geico Beach, yeah.
Yeah.
He's just been charged with 2 more.
Yes, I'm going to start that Monday.
I was very questionable about whether his wife had any knowledge or not. I still have questions, but I do tend to think that she probably knew a lot less than you could ever imagine, given that recent evidence has shown that on so many of these occasions where he phoned to hire somebody who he then ended up killing, she was actually away, with the children, taking them various places. So, yeah, but that case is, there's going to be more. I'm sure that there will be more victims before that comes to trial.
Oh, I'm sure. Now, has anybody out there did you watch the Karen Swift trial? That was a trial that happened in 2011. And it actually happened in my old stomping grounds. I lived there for many years. So it was kind of a personal thing for me. I had to watch it. They did deadlock on manslaughter. They found him not guilty on the murder charges. But if you were a local down there, everybody and their brother knew this guy killed his wife. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. But the prosecution just didn't show the evidence to convict him. You can't really blame the jurors because there really wasn't any physical evidence that would prove him guilty. So they deadlocked on the manslaughter, and so they say they don't know whether they're going to retry him, but I really don't think they will, which is a shame. But it seems like that I heard, after that murder, he took his kids and moved off to Alabama and got married again, but evidently he's got some stalking charges or something on him for his second wife. So there's some stuff going on with that. But I'm not real familiar with it. But yeah, he got away with murder, which, that's very sad, but that's what happened when you don't have the evidence to convict.
That is
Yes,
very
and of course, it has to be a complete majority, doesn't it? You don't.
Yes.
Sorry, it has to be unanimous. It can't be a majority verdict.
Right.
We do have the option for majority verdicts over here, but the very lowest it can be is 10-2, which is 85%.
Hmm.
But quite often that doesn't happen. Usually trials are unanimously guilty or innocent. But there is that option if they can't come to a conclusion. And I don't know. I have sort of mixed feelings about it. And in some ways, I can understand the idea of a unanimity that everybody has to agree. But then on the other hand, I think, well, we don't have that in elections, do we? We base democracy on majority verdicts. We don't expect everybody to absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So, is it right to make juries a special case? It's up for debate. I'm still not sure where I stand on it. But legally in the UK, there is a majority verdict.
Well, it was weird in this trial too. Usually they charge them with, first degree murder, second degree murder. Well, they had the whole list. They had him down for first degree murder, second degree murder, manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, assault. I mean, just the whole list of them. And, they were just going down the line and, they all agreed not guilty. Then they got to the voluntary manslaughter, and that's where they deadlocked. So that was very confusing for me on how they did that. So
there was at least one person who did think that he was responsible for her death in
right.
some way.
Uh-huh. And
It's
the thing I
interesting.
found kind of like odd too is they did this trial in that area where she was, in that county. And that county is so small, everybody knew about this murder or this when she went missing. I don't know how they picked a jury that didn't have a lot of information about this. So I kind of think that the jury might, I don't know, I'm just saying, it's a very, very small town. I don't know how they picked these jurors that were non-biased, that didn't know a thing. That's what
It
I
is
don't get.
concerning. It is concerning. Talking about
Yeah.
overcharge, the smorgasbord of charges that you just listed. As Grandma Sherry says, they should have done with Casey Anthony. They overcharged. They went for the biggest charge, and I understand that. My gut reaction is that it was a murder, and I do think that she was guilty. The jury found her not guilty, but my personal opinion is that she was guilty. But given the extreme sort of beyond reasonable doubt of what they charged her with, had left the option for them to find her not guilty of anything. And so she's free.
Yes, exactly. But I was not shocked at the Daybell case because the prosecution did such an excellent job. They really did. And the defense, to me, he just had so much opportunity to show Chad in a whole lot better light than he did. And he really didn't do a lot for him. He just really didn't. It was almost like, well, he's guilty, so whatever. I'll just do what I gotta do. It was very strange. The defense was very strange.
I
I don't know
wonder
how.
whether, although they were hired and they were happy to do his defense, whether there was that element of just couldn't get along with him personally, and therefore you didn't feel passionately about trying to defend him. It was just a job.
Yeah. Well, and supposedly he paid him with his house, signed over his house to him. And I think one of his kids is living in it. I don't know a lot of the details on that, but
Was that the house where they found the bodies?
yes.
Great. I would be absolutely thrilled to have that to try and sell.
Right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got this prime piece of land. Don't worry about the fact that bodies were found just outside. Look at the property.
Yes.
Lord. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, like Eliza, have been deep into the Karen Reid case, and where to start with that? I've got a little video that I'm going to attempt to screen share. This should be fun. Unless you can share it. No, have we lost Eliza?
We lost
We've
her.
lost Eliza.
She'll be back.
I'm trying to give you a potted background of the Karen Reid case. This is not going to be long, and it's not going to be as involved as you can find on several channels. 13th Juror, if you look up that on YouTube, excellent amount of, I think about 16 now episodes of the whole background to the Karen Reid case. Deets on the Streets gave an excellent potted timeline of the Karen Reid case if you want to go back and look for that. This is just a very brief background so that you're not coming into this, if you don't know the case, you're not coming into it completely unawares of what we're talking about. It's only a 5-minute video, and I will try and screen share it. Tries to remember how to screen share. Hang on.
Do you have it, Pearl? Just go down to present.
Yep, I've got it. I'm just in.
Okay.
Make sure you have the tab open that you want to show. Before you share the screen.
Okay, I'm going to try and play this. Tell me if you can hear it or not.
Karen Reid currently stands trial for the...
I hear it. Does everybody in the chat hear it?
Karen Reid currently stands trial.
Why is there an echo?
Karen Reid currently stands trial for the alleged murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Public opinion is quite divided, with many believing that she could be... Karen Reid currently stands trial for the alleged murder of her...
I have no idea what I'm doing.
It's okay. It was playing, and we didn't hear an echo.
Could you hear an echo?
No, we did not hear the echo.
Right, I was having multiple echoes. Oh, hell.
Yeah, it sounds fine on everyone else's end. Maybe
I've
if
just
you
realised what I was doing. It's okay. I've realised that as I unmuted YouTube, I also have our chat running in another tab, and the sound for that was coming as well. So
Yeah,
I was getting
there you go.
multiple. Now I
See?
know that's. I've got it now. Let me
Yes.
try that again.
I knew you'd figure it out.
Karen Reid currently stands trial for the alleged murder of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Public opinion is quite divided, with many believing that she could be innocent. Boston police officer John O'Keefe and Karen Reid, his girlfriend of 2+ years, were enjoying a night out in Canton, Massachusetts. By 7:50 the next morning, Officer O'Keefe would be declared deceased. His teenage niece and nephew would be orphans for a second time, and Karen Reed would quickly become the main suspect in his death. So what exactly happened that night? Was Karen Reed an angry, jealous woman who intentionally struck her boyfriend with her Lexus SUV in a drunken rage before driving off, leaving him to die in the cold? The following timeline is not meant to be exhaustive. It is designed to give you the facts and bring you up to speed prior to opening arguments. We began in the evening of the 28th of January, 2022. At 7:37 p.m., Officer John O'Keefe arrived at C.F. McCarthy's Irish Pub. At 8:51 p.m., Karen Reed arrived at C.F. McCarthy's and joined John. At 10:40, John and Karen leave C.F. McCarthy's together. At 10:54, the couple arrive at the Waterfall Bar. This takes us to the 29th of January, 2022. At 12:10 a.m., the bar is closing, its last call. So John and Karen leave the Waterfall Bar, and on the way out, John grabs a cocktail glass and disappears out the door with it. At 12:14 a.m., Officer O'Keefe sends a text to Jennifer McCabe reading, "Where to?" Jennifer McCabe replies with the address of 34 Fairview Road, which is the home of her brother-in-law, Brian Albert. Brian is married to Jennifer's sister, Nicole. At 12:31 a.m., Jennifer McCabe sends another text to Officer O'Keefe that simply says, "Hello." She does this when she believes she sees Karen Reed's black Lexus SUV pull up to the residence. At 12:40 a.m., Jennifer McCabe sends another text to John O'Keefe reading, "Pull up behind me." She then alleged she saw the black SUV move from its initial spot to the left side of the property. At 12:45 a.m., Jennifer McCabe sends yet another text just reading, "Hello," to John. She alleges that she then watched the black SUV just drive away. At 2:27 and 40 seconds, this is per a Celebrite report, Jennifer McCabe or Jennifer McCabe's phone Googled "How long to die in the cold." She made a typo, clearly Googling "how long to die in cold." At 4:53 a.m., Karen Reed calls Jennifer McCabe looking for a boyfriend because he hasn't come home. Shortly after Karen Reed calls Jennifer McCabe at 4:53, she leaves the house in her Lexus SUV, and in CCTV, we actually do see her car back up, and she bumps into John O'Keefe's Traverse, which is parked on the driveway. She takes off. She drives to Jennifer McCabe's house, and then the two of them drive back to John's house, where they're met by a third woman called Carrie Roberts. Then the three of them get into Carrie's car, and they all go out to look for John. They eventually arrive back at 34 Fairview Road. Karen is actually the first of the three to spot John. She gets out of the car, runs over to him, covers his body with her own for warmth, and begins performing CPR with the assistance of Carrie. In the meantime, Jennifer McCabe places a call to 911 at about 6:04 a.m. At 6:23 a.m., Jennifer McCabe Googles "how long to die in cold" again. And then again at 6:24 a.m., Jennifer McCabe Googles "how long to die in the cold." 6:24 a.m. is also when Sergeant Lank arrives at 34 Fairview. He is said to be the first member of law enforcement on the scene. At 7:50 a.m., Officer John O'Keefe is declared dead following transport and warming at Good Samaritan Medical Center in Brockton, Massachusetts.
Dun, 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 dun. Pearl knows how to screen share now.
Great job, Pearl. Yeah, this case has been really
I was on mute all the time that I was talking. I was just saying that is a really good little potted background of what went on. One of the things that it moved over rather quickly that I'd like to go back to is the number of people that were in the house, a Boston police officer's house, that John O'Keefe was found dead in the garden of. 12 people, none of whom at any stage seemed to have seen his body. One person suddenly on the stand remembered seeing a lump out there, but apparently not enough of a lump to be intriguing enough to comment to anybody else that was around them. So these are the people, as you can see, that obviously are all connected because they were celebrating a birthday. Oh, let's get rid of that comment. Okay, so you've got the homeowners, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert. Brian Albert's brother is Chris Albert. His wife is Julie Albert. Their son is Colin Albert. Colin is quite a controversial figure. Everybody seems determined to say that Colin Albert was never in the vicinity of John O'Keefe. Probably because, whoops. Can someone confirm who's found the search of how long will it take for someone? Right, that was on Jen McCabe's phone. That's the sister of Nicole Albert, whose house they were all in when that happened. No, it wasn't on Karen's phone. Okay, let's hide that comment again. Right, so the homeowners were Brian Albert and Nicole Albert. Brian Albert is a member of Boston's Finest. His friend, Brian Higgins, is also in law enforcement, not the same branch, and I cannot remember what his actual official job is. Anyway, he has an office at Canton Police Station. Why am I hearing sounds of somebody getting in and out of a car?
I'm sorry, I had to plug my computer in. I was trying to mute it, but it wouldn't let me.
That's okay. I was just thinking, none of us are true. Is Lolita back?
Lord.
Poor taste joke.
Flashbacks.
Flashback. So, right, they're all interrelated apart from the two friends. Brian Higgins, who's the friend of Brian Albert. They're both law enforcement officers of some description. And Julie Nagel, who's a friend of Brian Jr. and Alison McCabe. And also knows Colin Albert, but that's sort of tangential. So these people were all inside that house. And I've lost my train of thought completely. None of them seem to be consistent on the stand. All of them who have given evidence have inconsistencies and questionable behaviours, not least of which the amount of people who decided that they needed to get rid of their old phone or update to a new phone and get rid of all their old data.
Well, they needed new phones because apparently their phones were so subject to butt dialing.
Yes.
You know?
Oh, Lord, the butt dialing. Where to even begin with that? During the evening, when John O'Keefe died and before he was found, a huge number of these people all accidentally butt dialed each other. And they honestly seem to think that that is not strange or questionable in any way. It is truly bizarre.
It's a very odd coincidence.
Also, everybody, as Grandma Sherry points out, everybody seems to have been very inebriated.
Yes.
And even those involved in law enforcement had to admit on the stand that they had been driving around while drunk. So the idea that Karen is the only person who had a drink and then got behind the wheel of a car, no, they all did. And it was
Yeah, it
obviously
made me
not a
want-
one-off occurrence. This is obviously a regular thing for them.
Yeah, it made me sure I never want to drive through Canton. It's not safe. They got a lot of drunks on the road, and a bunch of them have badges.
The prosecution's theory of how this murder happened is that Karen Reid backed into him, breaking her taillight. No specificity so far in this trial, which is in its 7th week, and it's, 21st or 22nd day. So far, they have not told us exactly how that impact happened, how his injuries occurred, or even a real rundown of what those injuries were. I think we're 60 witnesses in, and the prosecution has yet to make any sort of cohesive reconstruction of exactly what happened. The prosecution has built their case around a specific murder weapon, being the car. And yet they've not showed us any injuries that are consistent with that weapon. They've told us that he was struck by a car. They've told us that he was struck by Karen Reid's car, but they've yet to show us exactly the how. Or even really the why. They've tried to suggest that the relationship was rocky, and that contrary to all the film evidence of them being very lovey-dovey with each other in the bar, that they had an argument at some stage, that he wanted to stay and she wanted to go, and she lost her temper and hit him with the car. And that even though all these people were looking in and out of windows for no apparent reason, no one saw her actually striking with the car or saw his body in the yard. It's really hard to see how this got to trial. I know there are people who disagree with that, but for me, I think that the case to dismiss this was really strong. And I don't think the prosecution are really putting their case across the board. What do you think, Eliza? I think we must have lost Eliza.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my sound cut out. Did you say something to me?
Yeah, I wondered what you thought about the prosecution's case and whether this should have even got to trial, from what you've seen so far.
From what I've seen so far, I do not understand how this got to trial. I don't have words. I cannot believe this has gone to trial, that they had put this stuff together. I cannot believe the video that was shown to the jury. What was that, Friday that was showed?
The Sally Port mirrored video.
Yeah.
There are so many questionable things in this.
It so tricks your brain when you see something backwards like that. It really did, even though they could have told me, hey, that is the driver's side, blah, blah, blah. Your brain still sees that as the passenger side, the way it's presented. I cannot believe that was allowed to be put into evidence that way and be testified with. And they didn't even mention it until the defense said something about it. So
and the defense mentioned it because there was uproar. People who immediately spotted it and were all over social media. And it's I'm sorry, but it's obvious to me that the officer who was giving evidence on the stand that day has been watching everything.
Well, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, what are they saying he actually died of?
Getting hit by a car.
Okay.
They're saying that she murdered him with a car. Now, the problem with that, right from the get-go, before you start talking about accidents or intent or any of that, is that on his death certificate, it says the manner of death was undetermined. Doesn't say homicide. Doesn't say result of a vehicular accident. None of the there's no indication. It says blunt force trauma, hypothermia is also a secondary cause, but the manner of the death was undetermined.
My
Now the
whole
problem,
problem with it is the fact that, you know, the way they're alleging this happened is that she backed into him at what, 150 miles an hour? The way that he is thrown upon the yard and where the evidence is all about. The blizzard doesn't do that. I'm sorry. I don't.
my
You don't
problem
back
with
up that fast.
my problem with the shattered tail light is crumple zones on cars are a thing. Usually, the amount of force it would take to break a tail light would do damage to other aspects of the car. Unless you hit something solid directly on the tail light, I don't know, like tapping into the edge of somebody else's car, as it a direct impact straight onto just that area. I don't see how a body, no matter how you say he was bent, I don't understand how you say that a body breaks just a tail light and doesn't have any further impact on anything else around it. It doesn't make sense. He was a big man. He was over 200 pounds. He was over 6 foot. It doesn't make any sense that only the tail light would be broken. I'm really hoping that the defence has some sort of impact testing evidence. You know, they have some sort of specialist come in, because the whole tail light hit by a car thing, with very little or no evidence so far of exactly how it happened, is a huge problem. But more than that, my understanding of murder too is that you have to show intent. It was intentional.
Right.
And again, I've yet to see anything that tells me that she would intentionally want to hit him.
I mean, we've seen cases where people have intentionally hit people. And
There's been loads of cases where women have hit
into somebody. I mean, it just, to me, it doesn't seem logical. And I think that's like, how did they bring this to trial and with the charges that they chose?
Yeah, and the damage to his body doesn't make sense to it either, as Eva said in the chat. The idea that the injuries would be on his face, the back of his head, and his arm, with no other. I mean, you would expect that there would be injuries, sort of pelvic and leg injuries from impact from a car. And what Eliza was just saying about, we have seen cases where women have killed partners with the car. And I urge you to just go and do a rough Google search for that sort of thing. And you will find that in nearly every case, it is front on at high speed. And quite often they'll back over the body as well. It's like a real rage thing. It's not backing into somebody with just enough impact to break your tail light and somehow kill them. None of it makes sense.
They're also alleging that she hit him so hard going backwards that she knocked him out of one of his shoes.
Wow.
Yeah. Knocked him out of one shoe. And his hat. None of it makes a lot of sense to me.
You know, the biggest evidence that Colin Albert might have been involved is the way that every single person who gives evidence is determined that Colin Albert was not involved, not there, no, wasn't even around.
Well, one of the witnesses testified in regards to him, said Colin wasn't there when John was there.
Yes.
And
yes.
Wait, they said John wasn't there. So what do you mean?
Grandma Sherry's right. Yes. Medical examiner said there are no injuries consistent with an auto impact. In fact, the FBI said that there was no evidence. Their accident reconstruction people said that it didn't look like it was the result of a vehicular accident either. I'm really intrigued to see what the defence are going to bring up in their case. I very much want to see their expert witnesses.
Yes. Has the medical examiner testified yet? Did I miss that?
No, we've had medical evidence given by a trooper. That was sort of, they tried to work that in as if that was some sort of official opinion while he was on the stand in the last day of court. We've had evidence about alcohol content of Karen Reid's blood. We've had evidence of the actual paramedics who turned up at the site, but no sort of autopsy, medical examiner evidence so far. No medical evidence of any substance, really. Not about John O'Keefe's actual body.
Yeah, I'm wanting to hear the medical examiner testimony, because how do they make this into what they're alleging?
Especially with the cause of death. They're really reaching here. There's so much reasonable doubt in this case.
For me, the Google search, the house long to die in cold at 2:27, hours before his body is found, when they all supposedly don't know where he is, that is a real stumbling block for me. I can't understand any possible explanation for that. I know they keep saying, oh, it's some sort of mix-up with tabs. No, it's not. That doesn't make any sense.
That one thing, if it had only been that one thing, but so far all the one things that have been testified to, that's too many one things for me. It's just way too many coincidences.
The only things that ever get deleted off people's phones are things that connect them in some way to this case.
Right.
My absolute favourite was Brian Higgins, the man who not only decided that he needed to get a new phone, update all his minutes, and change his number and everything, but didn't just sort of, as most people do, hand the phone in or, possibly keep it in a drawer. No, he went to a military base, took out the SIM card, broke that separately, and frisbeed his phone into a dumpster on a military base. I mean, he really, really did not want those two things connected in any way. But before he did that, he went to his friend who works in information technology for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and just took a selective bit of info off his phone, some useful screenshots, but everything else that... and not only that, his friend knew this was questionable because his friend didn't do it. His friend told him how it could be done. That to me suggests somebody who, when cornered by a friend, gave up the information but did not want to be implicated directly in any way, shape or form. And that is a big question mark in itself. He was like, yeah, guy, I'm not, I'll tell you how to do it, but I'm not doing it.
Hypothetically, if one was to do it, this is how they do it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the impression I had as well.
I really don't understand. Sorry, darling, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, how about all the missing footage that, most of it's there, but just key moments just happen to be like, it didn't record. I don't know. That part is missing. It's...
yes, for those of you who really want to be intrigued by a case, footage from the local library would have shown Karen passing it in one direction, then coming back the opposite direction. When she came back, you would have had a clear view of the back of her car. And say, for example, if it showed that all or most of that tail light was intact, it would completely mess up this case. They have both hours of footage that cover the time when she left and when she came back. You'll never guess what 2 minutes of footage in that time are somehow missing.
That was wild, wasn't it?
It's the very bit that would show the rear of her car as she passed. Everything else is there. Those 2 minutes are gone.
All of these strange coincidences in this trial.
Somehow, there's missing footage off the Ring camera outside John O'Keefe's house, again, which could have shown or not the state of the back of Karen Reid's car before John O'Keefe's body was found. There's a whole question mark over the mirrored footage of the police actually bringing her SUV into Sallyport. It was mirrored to make it look like there weren't people hanging around the questionable tail light. There are jumps in it. Dietz has put a video together that shows that there are jumps in the timeline of that film. There are people sort of move spontaneously from one place to another. The actual trooper on the stand tried to describe this as a sort of fog, as if it was somehow just blurry footage instead of there actually being time skips.
Yeah.
Everything in this is just gives you the ick. It's sort of like, why is no one being absolutely honest about this? It should never have got to this stage. I mean, I know people are saying the notion of beyond reasonable doubt, that people's questions over this, I've heard some people say that people's questions over the evidence so far don't meet the standard of reasonable doubt. I dispute that. I wanted to show you exactly what the juror instructions for Massachusetts are in cases like this with reasonable doubt. Let me just get that.
Give me just a second, Grandma Sherry, and I'll let you in. Well, that'll work perfectly.
That comment.
Leave that there for just a second, Pearl. Grandma Sherry, can
yeah, I'm leaving it up for a bit because I'm going to read it. This is an excerpt from the Massachusetts juror instructions, and it says explicitly, it's not enough for the Commonwealth to establish a probability, even a strong probability, that the defendant is more likely to be guilty than not guilty. That is not enough. Instead, the evidence must convince you of the defendant's guilt to a reasonable and moral certainty, a certainty that convinces your understanding and satisfies your reason and judgment as jurors who are sworn to act conscientiously on the evidence. That is a pretty strong criteria. It is saying that it has to meet a level where you are convinced. Am I okay to take that down, or are we still checking Grandma Sherry out?
I'm waiting for Grandma Sherry to talk so we can know it's her.
Oh, hi. It's me. Can you hear me?
Okay, perfect.
It is Grandma Sherry. Let me get rid of that.
We were using that for our peen screen.
Oh, no. Yeah. I actually had to go put on a shirt before I came up just in case I had a cam slip. Hey, guys.
Hey, it's lovely to speak to you, Grandma. So are you deep into the Karen Reid case then?
No. I have a moderator's knowledge of it because so I've been catching bits here and there. I'm trying to stay like I think it's Melissa Jade and maybe Bendy Lou and I don't know Alex.
You're trying to watch it from a jurist perspective.
Yes,
not
exactly.
Not too much outside, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the problem that I have. Okay, I worked in auto insurance and claims for like 18 years. And I did injuries, bodily injury. That was me. And so I have experience with literally over 10,000 auto injuries, including pedestrian accidents and how injuries happen in a crash. You know you ever seen the test dummies?
Yeah.
In cars? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Crash test dummies, yeah.
Yes.
Crash test dummies. I've actually been to that location where they do those, and they test the different cars and what kind of damage it causes. And you're talking about the crumple zones.
That's
right?
how they get their safety ratings, right?
Exactly. Well, within that, when they're actually they have the dummies inside the car. It's not just car damage. If you'll notice, they're broken off they're sectioned. And oftentimes when the dummy hits some part of the car inside, it'll leave a paint mark.
Right.
And so within that, they come up with something called the biomechanics of how an injury happens. And so consistently, when someone is hit by an auto, there are very specific ways. You know, people say, oh, they're always thrown out of their shoes. No, they're not. Because the body reacts differently depending upon the speed and depending upon which part of the
Right.
car hit them. So for Karen Reed to hit John O'Keefe with the amount of force, they call it a delta force when it comes to cars, a car
Okay.
impact, with the amount of delta force to actually throw him, or what they call a launch, okay, from where he could have been standing near the driveway into where they found him. That would have been a
Right.
launch, okay. She would have had to have been going, like you said, about 65 miles an hour. And typically, people don't reverse at that speed.
Right. In the snow, even if it hadn't, fallen that much. I mean,
Yeah.
even intoxicated, I don't see it happening without hitting a lot of other things besides just him.
Well, and that's, I think that's where the defense is really pulling into, she may have hit him, he may have fallen over, but what they're questioning is, like, he's got those abrasions and the cuts or the lacerations on his arms.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to go to work, so I didn't get the whole white soul, black soul thing that Dietz was doing yesterday with his shoes.
Right.
So there's a lot of things in this case that's reasonable doubt. But for me, the whole big, the tail light broke, so obviously she hit him.
Yeah.
And then I've heard that there was hair on the bumper and there was glass on the bumper. Yeah, that. But here's the thing: if she backed into him, he would have had to have been like bent over, like maybe he dropped his cocktail glass that he stole from the bar.
Right.
Yeah. He borrowed from the bar. He was going to return it later because he is a police officer.
Right.
Yeah. So maybe he dropped the cocktail glass, bending over to get it. She didn't see anything in the rear view, wasn't checking the backup camera, or it was snowed over, and she booped him.
Right.
It pushed him back over. What gets
Much
me,
like she booped his vehicle when she pulled out the.
Right, and she was drunk enough to be booping a whole bunch of stuff.
Sure, I'll give her that.
Yeah, but I don't see that it was enough booping to cause all that blunt force trauma and abrasions. Abrasions are typically dragging.
Yeah.
And for the tail light to have flown, the broken pieces, the distances that, they're leading us to believe. I mean,
Well, yeah,
like you said, it would have had to have been at so much faster a speed than, I think it would have drawn a lot of attention had she backed up that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. The arm injuries make no sense to me. I would understand the abrasions argument if it was the summer and he was wearing a short sleeve T-shirt. The idea that he'd been sort of impacted by the underneath of the vehicle or dragged across ground in some way, that would make sense to me. We're ignoring all the speed aspect. We know that's all rubbish. I'm just talking about, imagine that was valid. His arm,
Right.
the condition that it's in. If it was the summer, but that arm was covered, and when they actually showed the long sleeve sort of sweatshirt thing that he'd been wearing, the impacts into that fabric really did look more like a dog trying to get a grip on you than it looked like anything connected with the car. Now, I don't believe that her bumper was decorated with German Shepherd teeth. So I think it's probably more likely that the German Shepherd that was in the house had something to do with the arm damage.
The rehomed German Shepherd.
What was her name? Chloe?
Yeah.
Cleo?
Yeah,
Chloe.
Chloe the dog they'd loved for, was it 6 or 7 years?
Yes, but
Or
you
was
have
it
to
just the age of the dog? They'd had the dog for a while, and then suddenly,
Yes, you have to go
this
away.
night, they decide that she's a little bit sort of reactive to things, and she'd be better off sort of staying at a farm in Vermont, undisclosed.
Exactly. Now she's herding pigs and sheep.
Yes.
But
Spudler, I agree with you, except that if he had dog injuries on his arm, that may indicate that the dog was feeling like it needed to protect somebody, like perhaps there was a fight going on.
Yeah. Oh, I don't believe that the arm injuries have
I don't think the
anything to
dog
do with his
killed him.
death whatsoever. I think they just indicate something that might have been happening around the time that he sustained the injuries that caused his death, like that split in the back of his head.
well, and that could happen because the scalp is very thin compared to what it's actually protecting, and so he could have fallen in a drunken stupor and hit something and caused a laceration to his scalp.
I can absolutely believe that.
Right.
I've also done dog attack claims. Your dog bit me. Those type of things. So I've seen all kinds of dog attack injuries. And so I'm looking at that saying, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't look like it was just a dog. Like you were saying,
it definitely wasn't. I just don't believe the car did it, or the surface of the ground did it, because his arm was covered. The damage to his clothing doesn't make sense with the idea of it being a drag or car caused injury. Just none of it makes sense. But then his head injury, where is the blood? He lost quite a lot of blood, according to the medical examiner, and yet they found a grand total of 6 tiny drops.
Exactly, and that's concerning to me, because any kind of scalp injury is going to bleed profusely.
A lot.
Anybody who's had any sort of minor head injury knows those things bleed. They really do.
Visceral.
Yes,
a lot of veins and stuff in there.
And
I cut my finger last night, and before I could get out of where it was at and into the restroom to go wash it and bandage it up, I have a lot more than 6 drops of blood. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, you look like you're coming out of a horror movie. Somebody was eat after you, and it's just a little vein,
Yeah.
So,
so that's concerning. Where the heck is the blood? One of the women who was with Karen when they found John said that she put a blanket under his head. She may very well have done. I've not really seen any more evidence of that. But what I would say is she said that on the stand, and yet nobody said to her, "Where is the blanket?" Nobody seemed concerned that this thing that could really help the prosecution's case to show that the apparently disappearing blood actually was on a blanket under his head. You'd think the prosecution would want that blanket and want it in evidence, wouldn't you? Nobody puts an eyelid.
And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because if he was struck by the vehicle closer to midnight and they find him around 6 a.m. and he has sustained the head wound from that, that just doesn't make sense. Even if she did put a blanket under his head, I mean, the snow is going to be soaked with blood, the ground is going to be soaked with blood, but yet conveniently we only need some solo cups in order to collect all that.
I can't. The collection of evidence in this case, the Keystone cups, and when the guy was giving evidence about the way that the evidence was collected, he said it with his whole chest, as if this was not really a problem. I mean, he really could sell second-hand cars or double glazing. His conviction in what he was saying was absolute. And I was just sitting there thinking, you collected blood evidence in solo cups that you borrowed that you had from a neighbour, and you put them in a brown paper Stop and Shop bag, and then you left that open in the Sally Port for a couple of hours. The person who tested it only took a swab from one of the cups. Somebody decided that the best way to examine this area of a death was to get out the leaf blower. I just can't. If you saw this in a TV drama, you would say, "No, this is too far fetched." Please, these are
Exactly.
policemen investigating the death of a brother in blue.
We would be writing the program director going, "Who wrote this garbage?"
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and we have to take into consideration in defense of that detective that they did get the solo cups from another brother in blue. So they were cop solo cups.
Official solo cups.
Oh,
I
okay.
see.
That makes a difference. Then I hadn't been
Official
aware of
cop beer pong solo cups.
so they were now not solar cups; they were evidence receptacles.
that. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. Now there's just a whole bunch of weirdness. To me, I'm thinking the major blood loss from the head wound is probably inside the house that they never looked at.
You do know that the house that he never went in and that was never searched, that belonged to another Boston police officer, had the pool filled in, the dog
Yes.
rehomed. The basement floor was completely pulled up and relaid, reconcreted. And then they sold the house for, I think somebody said it was $50,000 under what you would expect it to go for.
None of that seems
no,
suspect.
No,
None
no.
of that.
Not at all. Perfectly normal. Nothing to see here, folks.
Also, this
Yep.
very reactive German Shepherd dog didn't respond to all the lights and screaming and people outside the house examining this poor dying officer. Not a squeak. Also, when Jen McKay burst into that house and went up to the bedroom to sort of ask people, tell people what was going on, German Shepherd never even bothered. Can you imagine bursting into the bedroom of a police officer who has both a gun and a German Shepherd dog and not announcing that you were coming, just accepting that you'd be perfectly safe? I wouldn't.
No
I
way.
can't even go to the bathroom here without being barked at by a German Shepherd dog. Can't even go to the bathroom here. And I live here. And the dog knows me and I give it treats. So there's just too many weird things, and but at the same time, whole massive cover up for whatever. I give that maybe a 40% weight.
I don't
Because
think it's a massive cover up that people think it is. I think that it's two things working together. Drunken ineptitude, both the investigators and the people who didn't want to be truthful about what they'd been up to the night before. And I think that there was a fight and they probably left him outside, and that she may even have been sort of looking up how long to die in cold in the hope that he would be found by somebody. And it would be a case of, he was smashed out of his mind and stumbled out there in the snow. I'm not even sure that anybody had any intention of him dying. I just think all of it is a mess, and it's a mess that is overlapping on so many different levels.
well,
Don't know
and
how to make sense of any of it.
when the first responders came, they weren't responding to potential homicide. They're responding to a guy in the snow.
Right.
A guy, as if you wouldn't immediately say, this is a police officer. I would have thought, especially as it's a police officer who is your friend, that you would use everything that you could tell this person to speed up their response.
Yes, guys, they probably know him, right? This is John O'Keefe. He's in the snow. There's something happened. You got to get here. None of that. There's a guy in the snow.
And apparently he was quite well known, not just from the fact that he was a local police officer who lived in the community, but also because, of course, he'd taken on his sister's children when both those children's parents had passed in different circumstances, and he'd taken them on and become, gone from a single man to a sort of standing dad. And lots of people knew him from that, even those who didn't know him as a police officer.
Exactly. And it's just there's so many. I used to date this guy. It's a long story. I'm gonna make it short. Promise. I dated this guy who was from Boston, and he called everybody massholes. Okay. So shout out to the masshole mafia. But so we went for Christmas time, and a long tradition, like from when his parents lived in the house. Their entire block, every house would have a holiday party on the same night. And I'm not a heavy drinker. I'm like maybe a social drinker. If I drink 2 or 3 alcoholic beverages a year, I'm, really woohoo. But when I went up there, by the time we reached the last house, literally everybody was doing a crawl. So I understand the pub crawl terminology, because people were so blotto drunk. It was unreal. And I said, is this normal? He said, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
they
it's that Irish English ancestry of that area. It is very much that sort of we have a drinking culture here, and that seems to be the same over there. It must be genetics.
It could be. I remember Father Kenny, when I was growing up, had a drinking problem. That's a different topic. Never mind.
No, it is very common now. I just saw this comment in the chat, and I've got to, because this is another thing that blows my mind. MJ saying, what's the story with the taillight? Is there CCTV of her driving away from the McAlberts' home with it intact? MJ, although this was the home of a Boston policeman who had received a set of Nest cameras for Christmas, he did not have any camera footage on his home because he hadn't bothered to put them up, he says. Equally, the police officer who lived the opposite side also did not have any cameras on his house that had any footage. Make of that what you will. It seems strange to me that people who work in law enforcement knew that they can, are aware that they could be targets if somebody is arrested that is that way inclined. Or
Well, they're
even a security-minded. None of them seem to have a CCTV cameras.
Right. They're so always looking for, when a crime has been committed, looking around for who has cameras and going to them to see if perhaps, they may be able to help them out with some footage as they investigate a crime. So, yeah, they totally understand the importance of cameras. I find that really odd too, especially if he had been gifted some.
Yeah, that just doesn't happen these days where, the law enforcement doesn't have cameras on them. It's crazy.
Well, I had a Ring camera, and the installation of that was so complicated. You needed a degree from MIT to do it, because you have to put 2 screws in the mounting thing and then charge the actual camera and put it on.
Yeah, it's so hard. Then click the app.
Right, exactly. Hook it up to my Wi-Fi. Oh God, no, I'm done. I can't do it by myself.
Well, the way they butt dial, maybe it is hard for them. I don't know.
There's probably an app for that.
I've never known so many butt dials, and I don't have an iPhone. I'm sorry, I'm one of the Android aliens over here, so I don't know exactly whether it's possible for you to but answer a call on an iPhone, but it seems a bit of a complicated process. One of these guys claims that he did this while in an intimate moment with his wife.
Oh God!
For some reason, he had the phone in bed with him, and he both accidentally butt dialed and accidentally answered a call.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, phones today, it used to be a lot easier to, what people call butt dial. It's not as likely to happen, and it wasn't that likely to happen in 2022.
Right.
These people, as often as they're upgrading phones, we're not talking that they had like these old ancient phones that it would be possible to do that.
Unless it's like, hey Siri, butt dial Eliza.
Right. That's about what it would take.
Oh God, my Siri answered. No, don't do that.
See, now you're giving me this really awful image that quite possibly the man in bed with his wife was calling out Brian Higgins' name, and that's how he accidentally butt-dialed him.
You've solved the case. Oh man.
Oh my God. Never thought of that. Okay. Yeah.
You think his wife might have noticed him shouting for Brian in the throes of ecstasy?
Hey, babe, who's Brian? Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm dying here. I
I
just
swear,
want
if
I
there was
just
some way to prove that that happened, his wife would swear that that was her pet name. Her husband has always called her Brian. It's a joke. It's about when they were dating. That's how these people give evidence. Somebody would definitely say that with a straight face.
Yes, our first movie together on a date was The Life of Brian. And, we always look on the bright side of life.
Seriously, they wouldn't come up with anything that good, but
Oh,
yes.
no, it's okay. That was just off the cuff. Y'all, thanks a lot for having me up and adding absolutely nothing of value to this
Oh,
conversation.
seriously, you
But
did, because you were somebody who could give experience, the voice of experience, to the way that accidents happen and the amount of damage that happens to a vehicle, because this is something that I do not understand, how a car hits a man hard enough to injure him in that way, and
Same.
yet
Yeah.
only breaks the tail light.
yeah, well, okay, I can add as my parting gift is that in all vehicle accidents, the bumper, which sticks out beyond the body of the vehicle, for a reason, the bumper is actually the first point of impact
Right.
if it's front or rear. So, and okay, I've got two gifts. Hey, it's a 2-for-1. And number two is that in freezing or sub-freezing temperatures, the material that the tail lights, the red part, because the light underneath the tail light is white, and it's just the red on the outside, is kind of like a plasticky material. And if I wasn't exhausted and dehydrated, I could probably think of a thing, poly something. Anyway, it does get brittle, so it will break easier than it would at a higher temperature.
Okay. Yeah. That
Yeah.
seems logical.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I'll butt dial y'all later.
Thank you so much for coming up, Grandma Sherry. It was really nice to have you.
Thanks so much. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for coming
Bye.
up, Grandma
Thank
Sherry.
you.
It looks like Tara is about to be subpoenaed by Larry any moment.
Tara would be the one to be butt dialing on the iPhone.
Don't pick on her. She's new here.
Well, she's having a tough day.
She's having a hard time. She doesn't
She
need
is.
this right now.
She's walking around.
TJ's had to leave us because somebody arrived at her house, so she's had to go and deal with that, which is a shame because she was going to tell us about the Karen Swift case. But obviously, we're now going to just continue with what we're talking about here. Have you been following any cases, Tanga?
I haven't had the time lately to do anything. I've been trying to keep up with the Karen Reed trial, and that was the best that I could do.
And anybody else that wants to come up and tell us about a trial that you're following, take the link and come on up. We'd love to hear about it.
Oh, my dog. I'm sorry.
Bubblegum telling us there that if your name begins with an A, you get butt dialed a lot.
Is that how it works?
It would be the first one on the list, right?
My dog pulls his own tail. I'm very sorry. That's what he's in there hollering about right now. I looked around the wall or around the corner, and I'm like, oh, okay. You're just yanking your tail.
Tango, let go of that dog's tail.
I know, right? I swear it's not me.
Eliza,
Yes.
what is the one thing that you've seen somebody say on the stand that is just... Has there been one event that's happened in this trial so far that has really, really, of all the stupidity, stood out as the most stupid to you? I know it's a hard question.
Yeah, there. I think one moment that happened on the stand, and I thought, "Oh, this case is over. It is done." Is when I thought that I can't not remember the officer's name, but when I thought he was going to have to plead the fifth up there in regards to using, official equipment for personal use.
Brian Higgins.
Higgins, yes.
Yeah.
That was one that really stood out to me because I was just like, "Oh, it is done, son." If you have somebody up there now suddenly having to plead the fifth, I cannot wait till this trial is over, whichever way it goes, to hear some of the jury feedback as to what they were thinking.
I really desperately want to hear from the jury post verdict. But Higgins did he went full O.J. Simpson with the "if I did it" when talking about his SIM card and his phone. He had his own attorney in the courtroom. That's when you know that you're in a sticky situation. When you're called as a witness and you decide that you need an attorney of your own in the courtroom.
Right. Yeah. I can't wait for the Netflix series because they got to be on this. One of them.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some sort of movie or a limited series made on this because it's just mind blowing. Because the tragedy is that in all this, entertainment seems the wrong word because a lot of it is just being appalled by it. But the fascination is real. Is that this is Karen Reid's life and John O'Keefe's death, and I really think that he's not going to get any justice. I don't know what happened or didn't happen. I just know that this prosecution is a farce. It is not put together well. They don't really seem concerned with things that do matter and seem hugely concerned with things that don't matter. Don't think they've proved their case, and I don't believe that when she's found not guilty, that they'll be. I expect them to come out and say they're not looking for anybody else.
I think that's
and
the
just
whole
leave it at that.
travesty of this whole thing, is that because of this, the way it was investigated, I mean, we're like, where is this? Where is that? Things that were not looked into, there will be no justice for John O'Keefe. I believe that if the jury finds her not guilty, I think that they're just like, I don't know. But the man did not beat himself up and then lay down in the cold snow. And, somebody caused him to be there. And I don't think that his family will ever get the real justice. I strongly at this point, and I haven't heard all the things, but I strongly at this point think that she didn't do this. So, I mean, there's still time. They might be able to convince me, but so far,
they could still have some absolute sort of showstopper piece of evidence. But I would wonder why they were leaving it quite so late in the day to try and prove their case when we've been
trying to be Perry Mason or something.
All around the houses with all sorts of things going on. Oh yes, this was another cracker. A 22-second butt dial. Higgins said that that's not a conversation. You can't have a conversation in 22 seconds. Whereupon Karen Reid's defense team wanted to try and count down the 22 seconds in court.
And they wouldn't let
them. I couldn't understand why she wouldn't let them. It's only 22 seconds. You've let people waste much more time than that. And it would be a valuable way of reminding the jury exactly how long 22 seconds is. We think that it's a short space of time, but it can be amazingly long as far as conversations go. He maintained 22 seconds was not long enough to have a conversation. Then later on, his attorney said that he needed to talk to his client and it would only be 10 seconds. So an attorney can have a significant conversation with the person he's representing in 10 seconds, but 22 seconds is not long enough for you to exchange any significant information on a butt dial.
Now you've
Okay.
made me want to go back and time how long his attorney took with
Yes.
Right?
Josh
man.
B, I don't think that she will be found guilty. If she is, I would have serious questions as to whether they'd followed the jury instructions on what we've seen so far. Of course, that could change. A new piece of evidence could come up and change that. But on what we've seen so far, no, I don't believe she will be found guilty. I don't know exactly what involvement or not the 12 people who were in Fairview, the house on Fairview, had in what happened to John O'Keefe, but I do know that they are all definitely liars. Why they can't be completely truthful, I don't know. Maybe they genuinely were all so drunk that they can't actually swear as to what they remember. It may be as simple as that, I don't know. But not only are they not truthful and wanting to avoid certain subjects, but even the way that they all chose to present themselves is like they'd had some sort of coaching. You know, everybody was dressed down. Everybody was like the biggest nerd in school presentation. I've never seen so many, you know, job lot of gold crosses were handing out. You know, the girls all had these gold crosses. Brian Alberts came in like, you know, he'd just won the science fair for the 3rd year running in his gingham shirt and his sort of fleece jacket, no product in his hair. No, I've never been in a fight, possibly with my brother once. And then we see the videos come into evidence that he's actually quite a nasty little thug. Why did he need to come in and do that whole super innocent nerd routine if he didn't have something to hide? It makes no sense. I'm sorry, darling, carry on.
I said, especially since he wasn't there when John was there.
Apparently, he wasn't even there, but he needs to present himself as super nerd, never had a fight, no, I wasn't even there, Gov. Why? They make themselves suspicious
Right.
by this behaviour.
There's so much stuff that makes them suspicious that I can't help but think. And y'all, did anybody that is following this case ever watch a television show called The Shield?
Right.
Because this is what this reminds me of. Don't think that
Gavel
it can't happen,
is
guys.
in the chat.
That is
Gavel. Gavel, if you feel like hitting the link and telling us what you think about the Sallyport footage,
Yeah, come up, Gavel.
I would love to hear your take on it.
I just dropped it if anybody would like to come up. Yeah, this whole trial has been crazy. But the missing
It really is.
Dietz was
And
showing
also,
was so interesting, I thought.
The personalities in the courtroom are also quite something. I really eventually want to be able to get Clara to come over here and tell us what it was like sitting in there watching them. I mean, Bev, the judge everybody calls Auntie Bev, because it turns out that, again, she's another person with a connection to this family. Both the defense and the prosecution wanted this trial to be moved out of the area, and that was turned down. It was suggested that the judge should recuse herself. You haven't watched the Sallyport footage yet.
What the heck?
I would still love you if you feel like coming up and giving us your opinion on things. That would be great.
Come up so we can verbally assault you for not having seen that. Have y'all played it yet? We played it a little bit earlier.
Tree, I found that very suspicious. I know that it verges towards tinfoil hat conspiracy theory territory, but honestly, when they drove the SUV into the garage and it fitted so neatly on that square, that was
I had a problem
surrounded by
with that.
snow. I felt like they'd driven it in before, then driven it out and put the camera on and driven it back in.
That's exactly what I thought. It is like the perfect, and then like there's not much snow left on it when it's driven in the second time. You know, like it sort of had sat there for a little bit, and a lot of it had fallen off. I don't, you know, but whatever. I'll even give them that, but I'm not giving them the rest of that stuff.
But you see,
can't.
this is the thing. I didn't think the snow on the ground was suspicious, Hazel Eyes. What was suspicious was the square that wasn't covered
Right.
by snow.
That's what I'm saying is that, so there was a car exactly that size that had been sitting there, and the snow had fallen off the side as it tends to do, right? When
Yeah.
And so it had little heaps of it. They then you have that footage of the vehicle being driven in, fitting perfectly in that cleared square. And it's not
Yeah.
like they don't clear that snow out, because after they put the vehicle in there that we see on camera, so was it the first time and the second time? I don't know. I'm just saying. But then
Also,
they
why
do
did they
sweep
clear the
snow
snow?
out. Yeah,
Why did they clear the snow after the car came in?
right? Couldn't that have had evidence?
If I really wanted to nail down the Sally Port footage, as if I was Lally, I would not have shown it mirrored, or I would have made it clear that it was mirrored. I also would have gone back further enough that if it was a different SUV that happened to be parked in that space,
you would
I would
show
show
it.
that car. I would
Yep.
say, and here's earlier in the day, this SUV was here, then it was taken out, the Sally Port was empty for this amount of time, and then they bring in Karen Reed's car. It didn't have to be complicated. You could do that.
Or just
The
let
fact
us
that he
know,
didn't
hey,
choose to do that makes me wonder why.
right. They could say, hey, we had to move a vehicle out, that could have been, along with the testimony of that vehicle being brought in, when you arrived there, we had, a vehicle had to, because if they took a vehicle out, it was snowing, right? It would have had to be just taken out. It just,
you see, and again, tinfoil hat territory. And I'm telling you now, this is tinfoil hat territory. Don't take this as me definitely believing this. I'm throwing out there as a hypothetical. When I think to myself, why didn't they remove the snow before bringing in a vehicle that was a piece of evidence
right.
in the suspected murder? I then think to myself, well, if somebody did help some of that glass get out of the tail light onto the ground, then they sweep it out of the Sally Port for somebody to collect off camera. But that's tinfoil hat.
Hey, Gavel.
Gavel!
Welcome.
It's
I
Gavel.
I was muted.
Gavel
Sorry, y'all got-
hasn't had the pleasure of seeing the Sally Port footage yet. I mean, you must have heard that there's whole question marks over it. Aussie Insider has made great videos condensing it all down. If anybody wants the sort of the short version that doesn't involve lots of lallying about.
Oh, I would love to see it. I just haven't had. I've been covered up with work lately, like all week last week, and I just haven't. I need to catch up, but I've heard quite a bit. Pixie was just telling me that it's backwards.
Yeah.
What is?
Yeah, and they
say
didn't
why?
choose to tell that to anyone until it was all over social media. People going, the 4 is backwards. Why is the 4 on the door backwards?
They put that they put that into evidence, had testimony on it. The officer testifying never says anything about it, but it tricks your brain into thinking that you're looking at the passenger side the way they have the video flipped. So you don't really notice the people on the other side that are actually on the passenger side. You're looking at the driver's side. When I saw somebody had flipped the video and I looked at it, it makes such a difference. I watched it a few times the wrong way, where it was flipped or mirrored. And I didn't quite see what I saw when it was flipped. It's just your brain doesn't want to do that. Even if you tell yourself, okay, the other side over there, that's what we need to focus on. Your brain, it just, for me, I really struggled with it when I saw somebody, had posted it with it, correct, in the correct, so
Like
that it
flip the
wasn't
video.
mirrored. Yeah, your brain instantly recognizes and all of a sudden I see a lot of stuff I didn't catch on that other one, because you're constantly trying to remind yourself what you're looking at. It's hard to explain, but.
And Gavel made a video showing that there are time leaps in the footage. People suddenly jerkily move from one place to another, and you can see the time skips.
Deets did.
Deets put together a video, showing that.
You said I did.
It's problematic,
Because I'm
to
up
say the
here.
least.
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was like, wait a minute, it doesn't even look like that guy moved almost. Like, what are they doing? It's all really strange. Like, the only photo that they have of the back of her car that I've seen, the only evidence was it was covered in snow in her parents' driveway. So how can you tell what the light looks like? It's covered.
Right.
And then we have that big gap in time from when they towed it to the Sally Port. Have they tried to explain that at all?
No, really, there are the more they go on, the more questions I have. I don't know what actually happened out there, but I can't believe that they believe that they've proven the case. I really don't understand how he got to trial.
I don't either. And they went so fast. They indicted her so quickly that, they had to do a second one. I certainly don't get murder, second-degree murder.
I don't either. I cannot see the leap.
That's one of the things that gets me, because we were discussing this earlier. My understanding is second-degree murder you have to have intent.
Mhm.
Intent to murder the person, and I don't understand.
Also,
I mean,
what about her? I don't remember who said it, but when they're talking about when they questioned Karen, and she made a remark about the condition of John's body and the condition of her tail light. Like, it totally seemed like legitimate, and they tried to play that off like that was a horrible thing to say. But even so, way back, she's like, knows, like, this doesn't make sense. Even if, like, her questioning herself, could she have hit him? She notices that this would not equal that.
she is so lucky that she was financially and intellectually in the position to get the sort of defence team that she's got. If she had just been a random policeman's girlfriend, perhaps worked in retail, perhaps didn't, was a stay-at-home mom, she would not have been able to afford this sort of defence. And I think this would have walked through.
What does that say about our justice system?
It's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Well, I think the GoFundMe raised like $350,000 even on top of that to help with the cost. Because if you think about Jackson's flying from California, he's got to have a place to stay. I mean, this is not an inexpensive.
Well, she's fighting for her life. I mean,
Yep. She is. I just don't understand. I mean, even if it wasn't, even if she hit him, which I don't know yet because they haven't proven it.
I don't know. They haven't shown us, have they? They haven't shown us what their theory of it all is. They've just said that the taillight's damaged.
Yeah. And that, I mean, we see her back into a vehicle. I mean, they all said it was cracked. And then when they get on the stand, Jim McCabe says, well, by cracked, I meant it was, busted out. And it's like, that's not what cracked means.
No. Yeah.
To anybody.
No, if I've got a crack in a mug or a glass, it is still structurally intact. I just can't use it for what it's designed for. If it's broken, it's in pieces. It's not cracked.
That's the same way I view it, a cracked windshield or a broken windshield. One is usable, one is
Yes.
not.
Most of us have driven in a vehicle that's got a crack in the windshield. It's not the same thing as a broken windshield.
You're right.
Not at all. And I just, the way that they've done things, I think they impeached pretty much all of the first responders.
I think so. I really do.
Not all of them, but almost all of them. But the ones they didn't impeach, they didn't need to, because they did not hear her say, I killed him, I killed him, I killed him.
Well, even
I hit him, is what she said. She didn't say she killed him.
Oh, I hit him. Yeah, that's right. You're right.
Jan
right.
McCabe is the person who he's the I hit him woman. And even she didn't make those statements in front of the grand jury. When they went back over all the evidence that she'd given, she'd never made that statement until she was on the stand. And that is hugely problematic. Also, it concerns me. I mean, one of the reasons I think that she's an easy person for them to have picked on, if you believe that there's any conspiracy at play, I'm not saying that there is or there isn't, but if you have a tendency to believe that she is an outsider and his girlfriend was an easy person to put the spotlight on. She's also an outsider to Canton, and yet people within Canton are the most vocal in support of her, saying that they believe that the local police are corrupt. That in itself speaks volumes. I mean, it's almost like people are so sick of people getting away with stuff. I mean, all the drink driving that happened just on that night, and that was not don't tell me that was the first time that they all
That'd
were
be
absolutely blotto and driving around.
Yeah. Well, we saw with the because we watched all of the town meetings when they were voting on the audit for the police department. They had to vote for that. It seemed fairly well split. I mean, the people who wanted the audit won, of course, but it was a split. It's not, and you don't see that in cases a lot of times where officers are killed.
No, and
see a split in the community.
This is one of the things that really stands out for me is that all those people who lived around Fairview, who were first responders or worked for law enforcement, and yet nobody seemed to come out and find out what all this kerfuffle and drama going on in the early morning was right outside the house. It beggars belief. I can't understand it. It just wouldn't happen.
Nobody saw it. Nobody saw him. How?
Not one Karen lived in the neighborhood and peeked through the corner. Not a single one. Where is that Karen?
But literally nobody saw him. None of the people. And then now all of a sudden one of the girls, which I think the younger ones are easily manipulated by Jen, because those text messages between Allie and what's his name? Colin. Those text messages are not, those are, to me, are obviously faked. There's all kinds of things about those messages on both sides that show that this is not
I think he's
a screenshot.
trying to say, they tried to say that they were just using multiple apps. That's why the conversation's jumbled. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, they've got things like the date has a comma after the year in one of them. That's not an iPhone normal thing that I've ever seen.
No.
Or heard of. And the times down the side don't line up, which is interesting. Why would they not line up if, it's through the messenger application, these specific ones.
And they all have certain characteristics that can be looked at and seen. Like, does this happen?
Correct. I mean, we went through that on Deets one night with a creator who had falsified texts, and we looked at various things. I mean, in one of the screenshots, the entire message bubble at the bottom where you type is not there. In these text
We've
messages,
sure seen that a lot in on YouTube.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I'm wondering, like, this was admitted as evidence.
Right. Without like Keystone Cops. That's the best, like Pearl said. It's exactly what it seems
Yeah,
like because
the whole
Oh, yeah.
screenshot thing instead of actual handing over data is massive red flag to me. Going on what Pollyanna says here, until she accidentally peeped into a stream live chat last Thursday, I had no idea that so many people were so convinced of her guilt. It is very much a hardcore division. I think even to the extent of it happening with John O'Keefe's parents, I believe that John O'Keefe's mom is absolutely hardcore. Karen did it, and I sympathise with her. I think that very much, regardless of her feelings about Karen, I think her feelings about her son as a police officer and believing his fellow police officers, if you consider your son as an honourable police officer, and the people who worked with him told you this is what happened, I think that you would accept that absolutely. And I completely empathise with her. I suspect that her husband sees much more of the question marks. Watching him in court, watching things go down, he seems like a very troubled man who is caught between the fact that his wife is utterly convinced and that he has questions. And that is an impossible situation for him to be in. There is no winning. And I think,
but if she gives up on believing their case, the police officer's version,
It's worse for her.
she gives up on any kind of answer to what happened to her son, and she's lost 2 children.
Yeah.
Three, if you
I
count.
completely sympathise with her. I really do.
Yeah.
I think she's
3.
wrong, but I
Right.
sympathise with her.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
But 3, if you count, I know my in-laws count me as their child.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And I thought about that after I said that.
I can't imagine. And those kids, I can't believe they put them on the stand. I see no reason for that whatsoever to put them through that.
And from what I heard, it's not like the prosecution really had anything to gain by doing that. So I don't know why it was done.
Well, sympathy from the jury, right?
Yeah, but it's not like they, from at least what I heard from, around
the readout.
Yeah, that what was asked and what was testified and stuff didn't put Karen in a bad light.
Right.
No, but I think they were just hoping for pure emotion, that you would feel so much for these children who have lost parents and then lost the uncle that adopted them, that you would just reflexively be revolted by the notion that the other person who cared for them could be responsible for his death. I don't think that they were looking for logic. I think they were looking for pure.
Well, that could backfire.
I think it did backfire. I think it would have
reading
backfired.
it and being so appalled that the prosecution did this, and that if they believe that the police officers are involved in a cover-up, it's really disgusting. His co-workers, I don't like the way that these people that have claimed to love John, he's such a great guy, and then the way that they refer to him and stuff, and they're emotionless.
The body
strikes me really.
The guy.
The guy.
The guy. Mm-hmm.
Tell him the guy never came in the house.
Going back to what Pollyanna says about divisions, there are some people who see any questioning of the police's honesty as undermining American democracy. To me, as an outsider, that's what it appears. They are so fundamentally hardcore, thin blue line, that any question mark over any individual policeman's integrity is a question mark over the whole system. and they
Yeah.
they just will not allow that. So to them, if the police say that she did it, she did it, and they're not
Yeah.
really open to the larger spectrum of what is and isn't brought into evidence.
I can tell
Yeah.
you that there's a whole bunch of people of color that are standing there saying, "We told you that. We told you."
Yeah.
You know, we've
Yeah.
been
I mean,
telling you.
it's there's good people and there's bad people in any profession, and
That's the truth.
you
The same
every
biases and good and bad and all of that that is in the general population also exists in a police force.
Yeah, I think it's as silly to think that every policeman is devoid of corruption as it is to believe that every policeman is corrupt. Both
Right.
extremes are ridiculous. They're like every other profession. There are some
Exactly.
people who go in it for the right reasons and some people who go in it for the wrong reasons. Power is a very attractive thing just to a certain type of personality. They don't see it as serving the public. They see it as having some sort of power over the
yeah.
public. The same problem with politics. I mean, even worse in politics because that tends to corrupt people's mentality even quicker. But power is a dangerous thing to be handled with care, and not a lot of people can do it.
It's true.
Yeah. And it's hard for me. Like I talked to Dees about this before, but it's really hard for me to even know if she's guilty or not because of how poorly this was conducted and
Yeah.
how poorly it's being presented.
That is
I
exactly my problem. I am not hardcore, can never be convinced that Karen could be responsible.
right.
But there's no way I believe that they've proven the case. Hang on a second.
Yeah, they definitely going to have to explain it better for me to be convinced because there's too much stuff that says that that's not what caused his death. They're going to have to. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say they're going to have to, tell me how this is possible, how it is possible for all these things to have happened, the evidence to scatter the way it did, for him to be knocked out of his shoe, for the injuries that are on his body to be explained by being backed into. Even if somehow the tail light got completely damaged as bad as they said it did. Explain to me how that happens. I don't see it. I just don't see it.
Well, have they gone over his wounds? Yeah. Have they had like the MD in there going over?
No, not that.
Sort of tangential mention of it because they had some of the forensics in, and so they went over things like the damage to the sleeve of his top, and obviously how that sort of matches up with the damage on his arm. I mean, to me, again, I struggle to see the possibility. We were saying earlier, if it was the summer and he'd been wearing a short sleeve t-shirt, and you could probably make some argument about damage from being dragged in some way. But the fact that his arm was covered and the fact that the damage to that sleeve looked very much like individual puncture breakthrough. It didn't look like anything that happened from a car. So they've mentioned stuff like that, but not really gone into the impact on his body because it's been from a forensic viewpoint of the items examined. It seems to me,
and then the doctor testified.
We're so many days into this. It's 22 days into the trial. It's 7 weeks it's been going on. And we still have not heard somebody say, this is what happened. This is how the impact happened. This is what happened to his body. I don't understand the way that they've been presenting this case at all.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I'm really curious what the weather was like that day, though.
I don't know. Nobody's mentioned it. I haven't seen any photographs of the outside of the house in question or the snow.
And nobody's asked any witnesses what it was like that day. Just,
I seriously, I think that I could pick that house out from 100 houses. I've seen it so often now. The jurors must be dreaming about that house. Also, the limited amount of crime scene photos. I mean, this is another thing, apart from the way that everything was handled, just the images. It's like taken on the 1980s best potato that the police department could afford. They want 100,000 to redo the kitchen of the Canton Police Department. I would recommend that they overhaul their cameras and audio equipment first, because they're astonishingly bad.
I agree.
And
Maybe some
also,
evidence collecting containers.
yes, invest in a ruler that is larger than 6 inches, for the love of God.
And a
Uh,
camera that gives you a view of, an overlay view of where evidence is, so maybe some evidence markers so that you could put where something's found in relationship to where it is.
oh my God,
They
that
show close-up views, but not, so you can't get any perspective on what distances are that they're alleging this is.
well, that's been driving me crazy the entire time, because it's like I don't have an idea of how far, like, say, the shoe was or the hat was from where he was laying, from where the light pieces were found, and sorry, um, where the tail light pieces were found, where the glass was. You don't have any idea about that, any good idea about that. But I did notice when they were showing the crime scene photo, one of them, you can see where he was laying, and you can see it in the snow. You can see blood and all of those things as well. There shouldn't have been snow underneath him, not much anyway.
Right,
So,
especially if how deep would have the snow been at 12:30, because that's what they're alleging. It was about that time that it would have occurred, and he would have had to have been cold laying there already. That there would have been snow still. I thought it just doesn't make sense. If he bled out or whatever, it would have been like it would have melted. You had to be cold already, or getting cold.
yeah, that bothers me a little bit, because I don't see how, first with body heat, which I'm not sure how much body heat he had at that point, but he wasn't as cold as the snow. But there was snow under him,
Right.
as far as that photo depicts. I don't know why they didn't put a tent up. None of it makes sense, the way they did this.
it really doesn't. I really, truly, if you'd have said to me that this was the investigation of just a murder of a passerby, the death of a passerby, I would have wondered at the ineptitude. But the fact that it was a serving police officer from that area blows my mind, that they weren't like on the absolute top of their game.
Right. Usually, when a police officer dies, that gets so much top priority, in any other situation. But the evidence collection here is just really bad. And I'm not even trying to say that I think that they set out to set up Karen. I think that the moment that she may have said anything along the lines of, could I have hit him? That's when
Right.
it began.
Well, so the interesting thing to me is there's a lot of interesting things. One of the more interesting things is Ryan had pulled up behind her vehicle to pick up his sister. And they were
Right.
there for a few minutes, right? While she comes out, tells him she's going to get another ride, whatever. At that point, either John was on the front lawn or he was in the house. Because he never saw John.
Because he
But
wasn't in the
Karen
car.
was
Yeah.
sitting there. So where was he?
Right.
And the girl,
And
his
everybody
sister,
that left, nobody saw him.
Well,
right?
that one girl said on the stand, suddenly out of nowhere, says
Yeah,
that, yes, I saw a lump of something 5 to 6 feet long.
yeah,
You
yeah.
see- Oh, so it was substantial and unusual enough for you to suddenly remember it now on the stand, but you weren't so intrigued at the point that you saw it as to say, "What the heck is that?"
Right.
Right. Not
I
then,
think even
not
Lally sort of was surprised when she said that.
yeah, not in any of the other times that she's been talked to. Never come up. But all of a sudden, because she was irritated, and I'm sure that I think that Jen has a lot of influence over those kids and what they say, to be honest.
Having seen Jen on the
Yeah.
stand, sort of verbally
You don't
duking
think
it
she's
out with somebody who
controlling, do
does this
you?
for a living, she strikes me as somebody who is tenacious with a capital T. She wants something to happen. I think she can pretty much make it happen.
Yeah, and there's just nothing inside the house, no investigation whatsoever. I mean, there could have been blood all over the ceilings and walls in the basement. We'd never know. We'd never know.
I found it inexplicable that they didn't at least ask the person who's I know it was a police officer, but even so, I would have thought as a police officer he would have wanted them to come in and look around. If you've got nothing to hide, what would the problem be? Yeah, come in, look around, look everywhere. He was
Well,
meant to come here, but he never came in.
and if
Yeah.
it was a friend or family member home and y'all found a body on the yard and you know the people inside, why do you wait so long to go bang on their door? I mean, you would be like calling them and everything, like, what the heck? John's out here. He's in really bad shape. What happened? No, they waited until what? She wanted to get blankets or something. I don't even remember what it was. Like,
Well,
how
I
would you
think she
not immediately say like somebody's on your yard? You know what? That's not how it went down. Not how they're testifying to it anyway.
yeah, they she called, but she didn't try to go in, which is odd.
It's really strange to me. It's almost
The
as if they knew they already knew.
And there's a thing too, so what we're not seeing in the prosecution's presentation here that I hope that we'll see in the defense is the whole Tom Beatty thing. Like, I need to understand that because there was a message that Collins to Tom Beatty's daughter, or he was trying to call her at 12:33. I think, can't remember exactly what time it was, but that night, likely for a ride, right? Is the what people think.
Right.
And apparently Jennifer McCabe and somebody else, some other woman too, pretty much harassed this girl about the message. And so there is a message on a post on Tom Beatty's Facebook wall where he's not giving detail, but he's talking about, you know, being harassed or people in the community harassing. So I don't know what the whole truth is around that, but I would love to hear that because Jennifer McCabe called Tom Beatty multiple times that morning before they found John.
I hope it does come in, and if
Oh,
it
those are
gets
probably butt dials.
excluded, if it gets excluded because of the harassment component, I will really be furious because the judge has allowed various other people giving evidence to talk about their harassment by people through social media and Turtle Boy. So if that's allowed, then surely harassment by the people who were giving evidence should also be allowed to be covered in the court.
Right, I agree. Welcome in, young black economist. Thanks
Yeah,
for
we're hoping we could
popping
lure the
in.
Glare over here at some stage. Probably won't be today, but he's actually been in court, and he was live, had been live for a while when we went live. So I recommend anybody go back and check and hear what the Glare has got to say of his couple of days actually watching this in real life, because I'm sure he's got some fantastic takes.
And oh my gosh, he's so tall. I had no idea he was that tall for some reason. And it's weird when you've seen somebody for so long and you have a picture of them in your mind. And then to see how tall he was, I was like, whoa, I've got to recalculate everything.
I always thought he was tall, but everybody's tall compared to me. I'm only 5'1".
Oh,
Everybody's
he's
so
going to
good
come
right
over. Pearl, he's
Oh,
coming
good. I'm
over.
glad he's
He
coming
sent
over.
that.
He said he hasn't got a link yet, Pearl. We could drop him one
Oh.
in chat.
Yeah, we'll drop
Yeah, we'll just drop him one in the chat.
Welcome in, everyone.
And what I will say as well is we have a picture of here he is in court there, looking really impressed by Lally, about as impressed as I would expect. But what I will say is, I noticed that Will sitting there just watching what's going on is more dressed for court than the vast majority of the people who gave evidence in the first week.
Right?
Most of them rolled up like they were going bowling.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Welcome in, everybody coming over from the Glare. We are so
Wow.
looking forward to his take on it. I have so many questions.
Yeah, I do too.
I do. I really do have so many questions. Also, he looks like he was boiling just sitting there. I gather that it is an absolute nightmare in that courtroom as far as heat goes. Hey, Gregor. I'm seeing lots of familiar names come up. Usually people who know me for being a bit more jokey and disrespectful.
Thank you
Oh,
for the $2 sticker. Glare sent me, Churchman.
Oh, how nice.
It
Yeah,
is
that
very
was
nice.
cute, Will.
And I have to say that it was part of the course, I think, that we saw Will getting a proper working over by a certain Hive community for the nerve of actually being in the courtroom, as if somehow anything that they disliked about anything that he'd done in the past should have somehow excluded him from covering a trial and being in the courtroom. It was bizarre. Anybody who spoke up of him covering this case well, sort of immediately sort of hit with the whole, oh, so you support a man who, calls a woman by the C word, all this sort of thing. It's just like, oh, please, nobody died.
I've called a
I mean,
few women the C word.
I'm from the UK. I don't get offended by that word because in some areas it's almost a term of endearment, and I just don't understand why people are so outraged this long after. But yeah, it was bizarre. You'd think that he was on trial. Never mind Karen Reed. Move over,
I
Karen.
have
Give Will a seat next to you.
I haven't seen the Glare do anything out of the way in covering this case at all. And I haven't watched every moment of him, but I haven't seen him do anything wrong. So he has just as much right to be there as
I've
anybody does.
really enjoyed Glara's coverage of this case.
Me
It
too.
was going over there on just a random night and hearing him start to talk about this that's totally sucked me into this case. I will be billing him for the fact that it has ruined my life. No, it's just taken over my life. I can't not watch it. When it is on, when the trial is being broadcast, I am in Glara's chat. I know that some people prefer to watch a trial without commentary, and that's fantastic. And if you like that, go and find somewhere that doesn't do commentary, just broadcasts it absolutely straight. But I cannot understand the people. Sorry, darling.
I was just going to see if I could interrupt to run a super chat.
Do it, darling.
All right. This is also thank you, Polaris Mom, for your super chat as well. And here we go.
Maybe we can buy some dick with it.
Thank you for the stickers.
Yeah, a hearty thank you from the whole jerk community. We're always very grateful for any dick money that comes our way. And so what happened was Nicolina came in one night and super chatted us some amount of money and said that we should use it to get the dick that we obviously needed. So since then, the super chat has become TJ saying, "Oh, maybe we can buy some dick with it."
I can't believe I wasn't expecting that at all.
Claire
There
is
you go.
here.
We
Willie's
just
in the
dropped your
chat.
link.
Hey,
I
Claire.
just dropped the link.
Okay.
We're so excited. Hurry, 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 Will.
Will and 100 of
What
his
a
friends.
Put Will up as a sort of preventing somebody randomly
The-
grabbing
the
the link
feed
and dropping
screen.
a porn bomb on us.
I already porn bombed the girls with Will once. They don't need that again.
It's in the chat. Pearl, he wants an email.
Oh, right. Okay. Where's the link? And it's in the private chat, isn't it? Hang on.
Yeah,
If you go to
can
the
have-
bottom where it says invite and you hit that, the link will come up, and just hit copy and send it to him.
Okay. Let me just email him.
Candy Temple just subscribed because of the dick money.
We appreciate you, Candy.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Fairy Raven. I'm very curious to know, because we know that the room is extremely small, but the reason for the switch in the room was because of where the witness stand sat in the other one, where people were looking at the back of the head of the witnesses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would just like to know, like, what the view of the witnesses is from the jury box. Is it? I mean, I'm sure it's some better, but
Yeah, that's odd.
I can't believe how uncomfortable.
I've emailed
room
it,
looks.
Will, to your Glera 360 email.
He's up. He's
Ah.
here. Oh,
Oh.
we're both trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, just
There we go.
invite
So
me up and
excited.
boot me out. That's great,
I
guys.
know. We both hit the thing at the same time. We were so enthusiastic. I am so keen to know exactly what your thoughts were, Vinica. I don't even know where to start. But first of all, let me say, I was impressed by the fact that you were more smartly dressed, sitting there with the back view of Lally's awful gel bald head, than nearly everybody who gave evidence in the first 2 weeks. I hope that the Alberts are taking fashion tips from you.
I'll tell you right now, it cost me more to clean the jacket than to buy it, because I got it at the Goodwill like the other day. I'll never wear it again. But I just dressed the way that I dress, really. I had sneakers, I had really nice sneakers that I bought like 2 years ago. And just for, going someplace, but I don't go anywhere. I have no social life at all whatsoever. So that was the first time I ever wore those sneakers. And I've had them for 2 years. And like I said, I'll probably never wear that sport jacket again. I have no reason to.
Now it's going to be your Karen Reed trial jacket.
Pretty much. Yeah. Yeah.
How did it feel to be that close to both Karen and John O'Keefe's family? Because that courtroom seems really small.
Well, it is small. And it wasn't very intimidating at all. It was a little intimidating at first, walking into the courthouse all together, and all those cameras. That was wild. But once we got in the courthouse, what they do is they make you wait in a courtroom upstairs that's not being used while everything is being put together downstairs in the actual courtroom that's going to be used. So while we were in there, everybody introduced themselves to each other, and everybody was and Karen was super, super nice. And they were all very grateful. They Alan Jackson let Brian and I know how grateful that they were for all of the support that we give. But they were talking about everybody, all of the people that are outside, because they can't really have somebody wearing a free Karen Reed shirt because of the buffer zone sitting inside the courthouse.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think what their plan was basically, well, let's get the most well-known supporters, I guess, in the courtroom, to show our appreciation to all the supporters.
Yeah, and I mean, to anybody who hasn't been over at Clara's, he's been covering this pretty much from day one of it breaking into sort of internet notoriety really, really well, to the point that he sucked me in, Eliza in, most of the people that I know in. Our means of discovering this trial were Will.
If somebody would have
Turtle
told
Boy
me
is
sooner,
not. Sorry, darling.
I was just going to say, if somebody would have told me sooner that Turtle Boy this wasn't about Dolly and that's why I just didn't pay attention. I just kept hearing Turtle Boy.
But
and
some people are invested in that, Eliza. Some people are invested in making you come in with the preconceived notion that this is about Turtle Boy and Dolly and the things like that. To me, the substantial part of what Turtle Boy means to this case is, as an investigative journalist, he is the person who noticed the elements of this that are pretty much, it's corrupt. I'm sorry, that is my opinion.
Yeah,
it's
I had
corrupt.
never heard of Turtle Boy before.
But all the baggage that comes with that, you don't have to pay attention to. You can just interact with what he brings forward on a factual basis. People want you to think about all the supposed extra baggage that comes with Turtle Boy, because they're invested in making it seem that the conspiracy is all these people on the internet that the defence are paying. I've heard people insinuate that Will is on the pay of the defence team. But it's
I'm
true,
still
they have,
waiting.
haven't they?
She had the opportunity to cut me a check right there. Never got it. Never happened.
You a couple of dollars in the back of the hand.
Something.
Well, I know initially when we started talking about the case, like Tracy and Dietz and myself, when we started talking about it, it was like this big hammering about so you support Turtle Boy. And it's like, who said that? We said he brought this information out. We're referencing him just like we would anybody else. Any channel, whether we like them or not, you cite it where you got the information.
I fully support Turtle Boy.
Yep,
the bottom line here is that the information that he's responsible for presenting to the public. Now, it's not necessarily. One could argue whether or not the defense already had this information, because they're using a lot of the stuff that he discovered through his own investigative journalism as their own defensive evidence. But that's not to say that they didn't have their own investigators who uncovered the same things, but that's not the point. The point is that he's responsible for letting the public know. He's responsible for letting us know.
Right.
And were his tactics aggressive, to say the least? Absolutely. But my opinion is, and it's my opinion, that when you're dealing with a system like this and this level of corruption and this many people involved in such a cover-up, what other tactics are there?
Somebody had to make a stink. Somebody had to make a stink to get attention. And
exactly.
And I see that now. I just didn't know. I never knew of Turtle Boy. I will go back and learn more now because I hadn't heard of him. Like I said, I thought it was a reference to Dolly, on what is his channel called? Whatever. Y'all know who I'm talking about. Yeah. That's what I thought this was about.
Oh, because he was the Turtles.
Yes. So
right. I thought the same thing. I was like, are they talking about Dolly? And then I was like, no. And then I made it a point to not even look at Turtle Boy's, because there was so much controversy around his name already. I mean, I had people private messaging me going, hey, be careful with this case, because they're saying that Turtle Boy, who's a big name in all of this, they're saying that he's just like JLR or anybody else. And I'm just like, okay. But I did my own independent research before I even wanted to talk to Turtle Boy. And and I'm glad I did. And then once I had Turtle Boy on my channel and to talk with him about it, I was like, we were on the same page. I had never even talked to him, never read a blog, nothing. And
Do you think that's why people are so angry at Turtle Boy, though, is because this corruption could have just gone so quickly and
Absolutely.
unnoticed had it not been like yelled from the rooftops? Look at what's going on here, everyone. Look.
Well, right. They should be kissing his ass. We're talking about a guy who sat in jail for 60 days to protest against his First Amendment rights being violated. That's that's literally somebody who's now in a fight for not just his own First Amendment rights, everyone's First Amendment rights, for his haters to have the right to talk shit about him. He sat in jail for 60 days for their right to do that. So
absolutely, he truly does epitomize belief in the First Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
He absolutely does. Is he aggressive? Sure, to say the least. Is he even distasteful to some degree? That's a matter of opinion. Me, I like distasteful. And the thing is, when you're dealing with a bunch of people who are just willing to frame an innocent woman just to make their lives more quiet, and they don't have to think about it and just throw her under the bus and ruin her life after killing and trying to cover up the fact that a Boston police officer was murdered by people that they're related to. I don't feel sorry for them at all. I don't feel bad for anything that Turtle Boy has said in his blogs about them. I don't feel bad for anything that they've gone through as far as him outing them for the things that they've done. I don't feel bad for any of these people, because the more this goes on, and the more that this trial goes on, all it's doing is validating his discoveries that much more, validating his actions that much more.
Yeah, I think that's real true. Hard.
Also, I can have two views at the same time. I can find an individual thing or turn of expression that he uses distasteful and still accept that all of his investigative journalism is worthwhile and correct. This is as stupid as what I was saying earlier. As some people were trying to say, you shouldn't listen to anything Will says because he called a woman a cunt. I'm sorry, but if you're going to keel over, true crime may not be for you.
Right.
It's not the end of the world. Somebody can use those sort of expressions or decide they occasionally want to have a drink and still be telling you the truth and the facts about a case. If you get so hung up on personalities that you can't weigh evidence, I hope to God you're never on a jury.
Well, if you're discarding people because of something they've said or done in the past that you don't like, you're alone. You sit alone. You can't
these are also, I agree, and these are also people who think that they would even get past jury selection. Their bias and blatantly willfully ignorant opinions are going to get any attorney to go, yeah, cut them. We don't want them. They're not capable of just weighing out all of the possibilities and then forming an opinion based on logic. They're not capable.
There's also the extreme bias that I see coming across the people going on, Turtle Boy's got evidence that he's been fed to him by the defence, but they don't have any sort of problem with Coffindoffer's extreme sort of white knighting for the prosecution and the fact that she obviously had some sort of info, correct or not. Well, what she was told was what they were going to say about rehoming Chloe the dog. She has inside sources herself.
And use this word. It was a buzzword. It was a buzzword between her and Brian Albert sitting on the stand. So like rehomed, not got rid of. Brian Albert was like, no, rehomed. So this was clearly a word that they practiced and said, this is how we're going to word it. So, I mean, you have to be blind to not think that Coffindoffer has an agenda and is a mouthpiece probably paid by the McAlberts. It's foolish it's naive to think that that's not a possibility or even a likelihood, because considering that she's telling the only story, she's the only one to tell that story prior to Brian Albert sitting on the stand, prior to Jen McCabe's, or not Jen McCabe, but Nicole Albert sitting on the stand. So it's ridiculous that to think that this woman is not somehow got some sort of agenda. And I'm starting to suspect that that Julie Grant has the same agenda for the very same reason.
I believe so.
Let's not forget too that Coffindaffer was caught trespassing at 34 Fairview on camera.
Those people, they thought they got a bargain on that house, and it must just be a nightmare.
Turtle Boy has eyes
right.
everywhere.
I don't think they
Turtle
even
Boy
have
has eyes
Turtle Boy
everywhere.
actually trespassing, do they?
No.
I
Like
know he did have that sort of roll by whether he was going to different venues, but he was on the easement where he was legally entitled to be. The way they tried to make that sound as if he was somehow coming with pitchforks and torches. No, he's perfectly entitled. And I mean, this is the thing. This is one of the things that most people admire about America is your legally enshrined right to speak truth to power and to protest. And the idea that you can compromise, it's not a compromise when you say that somebody can only do it within a certain distance limit. Once you start compromising, you're undermining it completely. You either have freedom to protest or you don't.
Very, very, very true. I agree with that 150%. You don't get to cherry pick when your rights are convenient. Just because here's the thing is when you have the right to freedom of speech and you support the right to freedom of speech, that not only means being able to get to say whatever you want, but it also means that you're going to hear things that you don't fucking like. So excuse me on language. Sorry, guys.
Oh, please don't worry. It's usually me.
We say that for me.
You're gonna hear things. You're gonna hear things that you don't like. It's just the way that is. You know, and you're gonna have to accept people's right to their opinions. Period. You know. Now you can.
Question here about Peggy. You were in court with her. Did you? The impression I get, this is John O'Keefe's mom, is that she is 100% in with the prosecution's case that Karen did it. That's every impression when I look at her is that she believes absolutely, and I'm hugely sympathetic towards her. She's lost her son, and she's also previously lost her other child. And I think that as somebody whose son was a policeman and who believed in the honourable nature of her own son as a policeman, I think that she totally accepts the line. You know, sort of the police are telling me this is what happened. This is what happened. And I'm not convinced that her husband feels the same way. I do think that she has been gaslit, not necessarily by Jen, but by her belief in a legal system that her son represented. I think she wants to believe that they've got the right person.
I think that's fair. I wouldn't. I've never spoken to them. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I won't speculate as to what their feelings are because I can't even begin to imagine what that must be like for them. So I just kind of avoid the whole topic of the O'Keefes, simply out of respect for them, simply because I mean, they believe this for whatever reason they believe it, despite the evidence. You know, they're. I
jumped on that bomb for you because me saying it will be relatively uncontroversial. If you said it, you'd be attacking the family.
Well, I wouldn't do so. You know, I mean, there's people that I respect. There's people that I respect very much. But they have to. Go ahead. Well,
I was just going to say the alternative to them not believing what they're being told by the prosecution is for them to believe that these people that they have respect for, that their son worked with, would do this. And that would be a pretty hard thing for a parent to swallow, that somebody would do that to their child and cover it up and all of that. Because to his mama, it's her child. He wasn't a grown, you know.
He'll always be her baby. As a foreigner, can somebody explain this to me? This is also somebody from the UK asking this question. Why don't they want to acknowledge John as a police officer? I've even
Right.
heard him referred to as Mr. O'Keefe. What is wrong with calling him Officer John O'Keefe, and why do they not want to do that? I would have thought that it would be an element of respect and importance that this was somebody who served the community who had lost their life for some reason.
Right. It does seem
I
odd that they're not.
I've thought about this a lot. And I like to try to play devil's advocate if I can, try to, see things from the other side's perspective as much as I can. And if I had to guess, I'd say it's because he didn't die on the job, would be one reason, or at least why they would justify doing it. But I would think that the real reason that they're not doing it is because it could make the jury feel biased. So it could sway the jury to, depending on how jurors feel about police officers, how they feel about cops, how they feel about corruption. So it could probably just make the jury, as far as the prosecution goes, it could just not help their case. If they try to minimize that.
I can understand that, but it does, again, it's like not being able to unring the bell. I'm sure all the jury
Agreed.
know exactly what his profession was and his position.
They
I
know
do
now,
understand the
yeah.
point you're making, yes.
Yeah, they know now, that's for sure. Let me step away just for a second. I'm listening. I'm just not going to be on camera, and I won't be able to talk for just a second.
Okay. I really want to know if Lally is as quiet in that courtroom as he is when we're listening to it, because people have told me that we are listening to amplified and enhanced audio, that it is even quieter in the courtroom. And that absolutely boggles my mind. Why on earth is Lally that quiet? You would have thought it was absolutely imperative that the people in the court could hear what he's got to say, hear the questions clearly. And that's one of the questions that I have for Will. Could he actually hear the questions that Lally was asking the person on the stand? Because I struggle. I don't know about anybody else. I know I've got a hearing deficit, but what about the rest of you?
It's definitely more enhanced when we're watching it online or on television, because the mics are hooked up directly to the feed. And you can hear that more clearly than you can through it being amplified. But the attorneys don't have mics. So, yes, it's difficult to hear Lally more or less. But I think it's actually easier to hear him in the courtroom. Maybe it's because of where I was sitting. I was right next to him. So I could hear him pretty clearly. But the thing is he's just as unimpressive in person as he is when you watch him on TV. His posture is not that of a confident man. The jury sees this. All of these things the jury can see. He's not a he's not a trial attorney. Put it that way. You could just tell. There's a lot of things that come with being a trial attorney, which means, having to present yourself a certain way, dressing to impress. He doesn't have that. He slouches. He smells like cigarettes because, whenever there's a break, he goes to this certain part of the courthouse outside and just smokes cigarette after cigarettes. Like Tom CPU showed me a pile of Lolly's cigarette butts just accumulated on the side of the courthouse. It's actually really gross. He has no respect for the courthouse at all. So
That makes me wonder why they picked him.
I think it's because this case, there's no way to win it. There's no way to win it. So they're going to give it to the most expendable member of the DA's office, I would think, if I had to guess, because I believe that how this went down as far as the cover-up goes, I don't know who killed John. I know it wasn't Karen at this point for sure. I just know it. But I feel like as far as the cover up goes, everyone who's lying, I think the plan was initially, well, we heard Karen not be sure whether or not she hit him. So if we make it look like she hit him, she's just going to plead guilty. Once somebody, she figures that her attorney is going to advise her to just take a plea because there's all this evidence against her. And that's not what happened at all. She ended up getting a really good defense team. And they were like, wait a minute, none of this adds up. So basically, they just conducted a very sloppy, a very elaborate, but executed very sloppily cover up and frame up job. I asked Jackson about this directly. I asked him, why would they do that? And I already knew the answer. I just wanted to see if he agreed with the rest of us. And he did. He was basically just like, it's like, when you have power, like being a cop or a DA or whatever, he didn't say it like that, but he's like, if you have a power, you're going to feel untouchable. You're not going to feel like you need to do anything. They don't figure anybody's going to ask them questions. There's nobody to ask them questions. They're the ones who ask the questions. So why would they, why would they put so much care if they fear no consequences? They did not count on this, Karen Reed getting this defense team who's going to have their own independent investigators who are going to get to the truth and expose it in trial. They did not count on this at all.
I mean, seriously, thank God she's an
Right.
intelligent woman with some means. I mean, not the sort of means that she's going to need the way that this trial is going. But if she'd have just been the partner of a police officer who was perhaps a stay-at-home mom or worked in retail, she would have been toast.
Right. I mean, right. She, if she didn't have the credibility as a person that she has, I mean, just the dynamic that she has with her family was enough to tell me that she comes from a very good upbringing. Her mom is the dopest lady ever. Like, she is so personable, so sweet, so kind. I loved her mom from the moment I met her, and me and her like just clicked like that. And she made it a point, come sit next to me, blah blah blah. And she wanted me to sit next to her during the first hearing that I attended on Wednesday. And as things are going on, once there's a sidebar or something like that, she'll lean over and be like, that this isn't true. What he just said is a lie because this happened, blah, blah, blah. So, because I just happened to be sitting next to her when certain things took place that Buchanan was testifying to in as far as their house goes. They went to Karen's parents' home to talk to her, and there were details that he was giving that were, according to Karen's mom, absolutely inaccurate. And according to Karen as well. Because Karen would look back like that's what would happen is we would be sitting there, he would say something, and Karen would look back at her mom and dad and be like, give her a look like, you hear that shit? You know what I mean? Like immediately. And then her mom would lean over and tell me like, yeah, that's just not true because of this is actually what happened. And I don't want to comment on it in detail any more than I have, only because Brian LTL told me that he asked Karen's mom about something, and she was just like, I don't really want to say. So she probably just out of impulse told me. So I want to respect her wishes, and just, even though it's probably nothing, but for whatever reason.
And I respect that. I respect that a great deal.
Yeah.
Also, I know that when I've been in your chat, when you've been covering this trial, that Karen's sisters have occasionally popped in just to sort of wish everybody well and thank people for paying attention to the case. They don't even sort of assume that everybody's a supporter. They're just glad that people's eyes are on this case. They want people to see what is happening.
It's her cousin Kelly and her sister Liz. And I met her sister Liz. Her sister Liz is a very sweet woman as well. This family is incredibly supportive of each other. Like Karen Reed's father is a no nonsense guy. He's a very kind and he's very soft spoken, or at least seems that way. But his presence alone is very prominent. You could tell that he has the ultimate respect from every member of his family and those who are connected to his family through marriage or whatnot. They are all very, very, very respectful of Karen's parents. They just who they are demands their respect immediately. You could tell that they're just good people who brought up a wonderful family. And it's I can't imagine Karen being capable of what they're accusing her of. I can't imagine it.
I'm glad that she has that level of support. I mean, not that I doubted that her family would support her, but just in the fact of the emotional impact of this. People forget as well that Karen has serious health issues. The build up to this trial has financially impacted her, and goodness knows what the physical impact must have been on her. But still, she's not going to be worn down by them.
She has MS. I noticed when she was talking to me, like at one point she got a little shaky, like her voice got shaky, and not because she was upset. It was a physical thing because she was actually in really good spirits and really excited because we were engaged in like, you know, in a whole, can you believe this shit kind of thing? You know what I mean? And so she's explaining, she's aware of every aspect of this case. She knows exactly what her team is going to do. And what she's part of every bit of decision making. She is very integral and involved in every bit of the decision making that takes place by her defense team. But Tim, there was a moment where her voice started shaking and her body, you could tell. So she gets tremors from whatever she's suffering from physically, but she does not let it get in the way of anything that she's doing. She's absolutely
and MS is directly affected by stress. It is one of those autoimmune diseases that is actually impacted by stress. And Tim, his question that I've highlighted here, Will is mirrored. I'm in a mysterious cloud of fog. If you watch the Sally Port coverage, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Could you believe that they tried to pull that stunt, Will?
That's the thing, is they think everyone is stupid. It's amazing. They think everyone is dumb. But especially they think that they're going to pull something like this and it's going to go under the radar of this defense team. The defense team where one of the members of the defense team just got Kevin Spacey off. And
that wording is very unfortunate.
Yeah, and I'm of the opinion. I'm absolutely of the opinion that Kevin Spacey is an absolute shitbag and belongs in prison. It wouldn't
be the first time you paid.
And I'm a fan. Right.
I used to love watching him as an actor, but I must admit it has coloured my my
I'm
perception
a fan
of him.
And
I do believe that he has been up to some pretty nefarious stuff, but everybody's entitled to a defence. One of the things that concerns me is I do genuinely believe that the prosecution has not made its case by any stretch of the imagination and is unlikely to come up with anything now that will convince me. I believe that the jury are more than likely to find her not guilty. And I also believe that what will happen is that the prosecution will say that they're not looking for anybody else. And they will just leave it as a black cloud over the rest of her life.
Well, that's what they're hoping for. That's what they're hoping for. They're hoping that she, at this point, gets acquitted. And they know they can't win this. They have yet to even present any evidence at all against Karen Reed. So they know they can't win this. The idea here is to make her a Casey Anthony type situation or an OJ Simpson type situation where in a high profile case, she had a great defense team and the guilty person got away with it. That's what they're going for here, because there's only one place you can look. If it's not at Karen Reed and her SUV, there's only one other place to look, and that is inside 34 Fairview in the morning hours of January 29th, 2022. It's the only way you can do it.
Well, she could have left it. She could have left it at I'm not guilty, right? But they chose to go third party, and that says a lot because that's like,
Mhm.
hey, look at this. Like you have to look at this, and
Right.
she didn't have to do. They did not have to do that. They could have
It
just
Jerks.
gone
speaks
with.
to her love
She
for
didn't do it.
John. She's not
Jerks,
just
I'm
interested in a
telling
not
you.
guilty verdict. She's interested in justice for the man that she
Absolutely.
loved, who ended up dead on the lawn of another officer's house.
The jerks, I am telling you guys that 5 minutes, Wednesday, my first day there, within 5 minutes of observing that jury, I was like, there's no way that they are going to unanimously convict Karen Reed. It is never
This
going to
is
happen.
the insight I've been looking for. This is what
It
This
is
is
I
what
never gonna
Eliza wants to know. Are the jury paying attention?
leaning
Unbelievably.
in.
Even now, the thing is, a lot of them. There's some that they're telling me, like Turtle Boy and just Machado, they made observations that certain people before were more engaged and seem less engaged now, but that works in favor of the defense. That
Right.
What that does is it tells them at least that now that they pretty much made their mind up. They're like, yeah, this is
Right.
how long
That's what I
before
was
this is over?
wondering, because I think a lot of us that have been watching it are kind of like, you're still not going to tell me, you're still not going to show me how this woman did it. You know, it's
Yeah.
how long into it you don't have anything that tells me this lady did this. So I think probably, I mean, at this point, if I was on that jury, I'd probably be getting in trouble for eye rolling.
Yeah, well, the thing is the jury's doing that. I'm telling you, I watched it with my own eyes. There are some jurors who cannot hide their reactions or just don't give a shit about hiding them anymore. But it's a lot of not so subtle, like, this
Yeah.
face rubbing and this stuff, when things
See, I
happen.
was wondering
And
because
they are way more engaged when the defense crosses. Way more engaged. Like it's like they wake up and go, okay, here we go, and they've got their pen and paper and they're looking. It's consistent. Lolly bores the shit out of them, and then the defense comes up and they're like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
yeah.
So while you were there, what is the one thing that you were like felt super lucky that you were able to be there in courtroom for?
Oh, as far as like an incident, as far as like a moment, I'm gonna say the second day specifically, especially, in general was being able to see the jury, but mostly it was to be able to see the jury's reaction to when Jackson showed the video of Karen bumping into John O'Keefe's vehicle, and the close-up of the tire.
Oh, wow.
Seeing their reaction to that was great because they did not hide their reactions. There were several people on that jury that were like, oh,
Yeah, that explains the light. Yeah.
right. Or it just makes them absolutely doubt the light altogether. Now the light doesn't fucking matter. You know what I mean? Now the tail light just doesn't matter anymore.
Gavel, maybe you can answer this question that's up there. Kathy Ashby asked, the judge should have slammed her gavel as soon as it became apparent that video was deceptive. Is that even possible, though?
I don't think it ever should have been admitted. I mean, just like the text messages between Allie and Colin, that never should have been admitted. Those are fake.
Yeah,
There's
and I
like 50
guarantee you,
ways.
every one of those jurors that's a parent is pissed off at the prosecution still for calling up minors to testify.
Oh my God. That was crazy.
And even if they're not affected by it, if they're not emotionally affected negatively by this move, they are looking at it like it's an act of desperation. They don't have a case. So they went and called up these minors at the risk of us feeling
For
bad
no
for the
reason.
minors,
For no
so
reason. Yeah.
right. So there's that. But mostly, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say we were reading the witness list when it first came out on Deeds. I was like reading down through there, and I saw the initials and just started crying. Like I couldn't even read anymore. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! They
I
cannot
didn't
call these children."
think they would, but they did.
Those children have been through so much trauma. They were already experiencing trauma that most children never experience by losing both of their parents in separate incidents so close together. And now, for the person that was caring for them to go out one evening and never come back, they're so
Right.
young. They've had so much trauma and so much insecurity. I hope to goodness somebody is looking out for them better than whoever allowed them to be put on the stand. It's wrong. There's
They're with
nothing that
John's
they could materially give to this case.
Sure.
They're with
I
John's
just don't
brother
believe
now,
it.
right?
Yes. Well, no, actually, I gather that the custody is his mom, but I believe that they are currently with the brother. I don't really understand what's going on with it.
Okay.
I don't know
Um,
It
either.
doesn't
I
matter.
don't know
They
where
are
they are.
they are still with the family, but it's just the whole thing. And some people are saying, "Oh, and she hasn't bothered with them," like she'd be allowed to. You honestly believe that if somebody has been charged with the murder of someone, that they're going to allow the children to see them in any way? That would be a question mark if
Especially
she
if
was the
grandma
birth
believes that.
mother.
If grandma believes that she's responsible, there
Of
ain't no
course.
way.
Yeah.
There ain't no way.
Oh, I want to ask all of you a question. You know, when the door was opened for Jim McCabe to talk about all of the harassment that they've been receiving, right? Do y'all think
Yeah.
that was intentional? Do you think
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jackson did that on purpose?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
I felt like
Guys,
Okay,
she was
I felt
trying
like
to
I
get
was
it
alone.
in 3 or 4
you
times before she got it in. I thought she was trying to get it in.
this
I think
panel
Jackson did.
knows better than anybody. This panel knows better than anybody, and you guys have seen it too many times. I've heard you guys discuss it with other people. When it comes to people who they're cornered by their own bullshit to a point, what is their defense mechanism? Play victim. That's what
Oh, yes.
happened. That's
Yeah.
what happened with Jen McCabe. She got cornered, and then she started bringing up this irrelevant crap. The jury saw
Absolutely.
this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Well,
you know, she
Tim,
brings up
Tim
Turtle
says,
Boy, and was like, who's talking about Turtle Boy right now? What are you talking about?
right. Well, Tim says the door was not open, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think that's a valid argument,
It
but the
wasn't.
ruling was that the door was open, so
Yeah,
therefore the
I
door
was
was
I was
open.
saying from the point of view of the ruling, I didn't agree with what
Right.
Auntie Bev did, but nevertheless it happened, and now it's a reality. Yeah,
And
I
the
find
door
it really
was
hard
open
the
with
way
the
that she keeps
feds.
saying
Ryan
we were
Nagel
in
brought in the
shock.
feds, and that door was open,
Right.
yet they still can't talk about the feds. So
Amazing,
Right.
isn't
explain.
it?
And not just that,
She's
but
very selective, and I find it really deeply unprofessional
it
that
is.
when she deals with the prosecutions, when they have, I've forgotten the word. No, I can't think of it. But she'll say about the defense, "I'll let them have it," as if she's doing a
Yeah.
big favor to them.
You're
Yeah,
right,
It's
it's
right, right.
so
different. I'll let them
Yes,
unprofessional.
have it.
bias.
Use
She's
the
Bias.
same term.
she's
Yeah.
definitely biased.
Well, I don't
mean,
like that you can't hear what the objection is. That's
and it's
crazy.
always,
Yeah. What is?
Objection
can
was the
you
word that I
answer
was
that,
failing to
please?
find. Thank you.
Yeah, that is like the strangest thing is that they can just call objection. Maybe they just don't like it. They don't have a legal, and the judge finds it for them, like the legal thing, and sustains that. No, they have to like show their competency and object with whether it's hearsay, whether it's asked and answered, or whatever. I feel like the attorneys should be stating their reason for objections.
Agreed. And it's clear, like she's a horrible actor. She's a terrible actor because she will watch when you see the defense. When the defense brings up their witnesses, she's going to talk to them a lot differently. When it gets to a point where she has to make a witness answer, she'll be super nice to them, be like, "Can you answer that, please?" Whereas a lot of times she'll just be like, "Go ahead and answer that. I'll allow it. Go ahead and answer that." So she shows a lot of favoritism, and she babied Colin Albert sitting on that stand. She babied him. It was just really bizarre to see.
Can we talk about just for a second for the people that don't know? Doesn't she have a connection?
Yes. There was a motion filed by the defense long before this trial started for her to recuse herself due to a conflict of interest because her brother. Now, hold on. Let me actually back up. Chris Albert, Brian Albert's brother, who sits on the Canton Select Board, many years ago, killed somebody with his car, fled from the scene, and then turned himself in the next day. And his brother, now he did time for this. His Judge Bev's brother represented Chris Albert in that case. So there's a clear conflict of interest there. And she
refused to recuse herself, right?
Absolutely. What's fascinating to watch as well is they filed a motion to dismiss and disqualify before this trial started. She denied the motion. The opposition motion was just a bunch of Turtle Boy bullshit. It wasn't even defending against what they were accusing the Commonwealth of. And basically everything that and Judge Bev, of course, denied the motion, said we're going to trial. Now, what's interesting about that is everything that they're saying that they said in the motion to dismiss and disqualify is actually coming to light. It's actually happening in real time now as the trial goes on. So it's like she's stepped too deep in the mud here. And the thing is she's untouchable. As I understand, I'm like, can't she be sanctioned in some way? Can't she be reprimanded in some way? No, the judge can do whatever she wants.
Well, if by some chance they found Karen guilty, there's so many appealable moments already.
I think so.
Oh, for sure.
In this case, like big time appealable. Yeah. I mean, I'd hate for her to be found guilty at all, but
there's so much doubt in this case. It's not even funny. Like there's everything in this case is doubt. Everything. There's no evidence. There's no piece of evidence against me either. There's no piece of evidence against Karen Reed that can't be that isn't riddled with holes.
My family's here, so I'm gonna have to drop down. But it was awesome seeing you, Claire. I
ain't
got to talk to you in a long time.
Having you up here.
Yeah,
thank you for coming up, Gabble.
Yeah,
thank you guys for having me. Jenny. I'll be listening here and there. So
okay,
have fun.
Thanks, Gavel.
Bye.
Bye, Gavel Geeks.
One of the things that I wondered, you were there when the officer formerly known as Bukaki was giving evidence, and I just felt that it was the most rehearsed, scripted thing that I had ever listened to in my life. It was like listening to Robert De Niro in The Untouchables. Seriously, I felt like he'd had a script worked out, and he was it was incredible. And the more he spoke, thinking that he was convincing and being very clever with it speaks for itself. It's funny, he can itemize things that he wants to itemize, but anything he doesn't want to touch with a barge pole, it speaks for itself. Especially the Sallyport video. And the way that they wanted to say that it wasn't, well, they didn't want to mention that it was mirrored until, of course, it was all over social media with people pointing out it was mirrored and the fall was backwards. And then on cross, it comes out, well, it's a true representation of what was recorded.
Oh, no, it's not even my favorite. My favorite is when he said, well, it's not backwards. It's reversed because it's reversed, but it's not backwards. Okay. It's a fair and accurate representation. It's reversed, but it's not backwards. I want to be very clear about that. What do you mean? So I'm like sitting there and I'm looking at Brian. I'm like, dude, doesn't backwards mean reverse, bro?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was insane. Yeah.
And again, of course, he was so detailed and confident and scripted in his direct. And then, of course, on cross, he developed the famous Canton brainworm, that they all
Right.
get, and suddenly can't recall, not sure.
Totally.
It's exasperating.
Right. It's to the point to where the jury is like, why are we even here? But now the jury is interested, but they're not interested in the way that the prosecution wants them to be. They're interested in the way that the prosecution doesn't want them to be. They want to know what else is going to be uncovered by the defense. What other veil is going to be pulled back by the defense. They're totally engaged by every time Jackson or Yannetti gets up there to cross. They're totally engaged, as opposed to Lally getting up there, and because everything Lally does at this point is predictable. He's going to talk about the weather. He's going to talk about the snow. He's going to talk about. I mean, it's all predictable now, and the jury is just sitting there like this. Like, I mean, one of them's fucking chewing gum and munching on crackers and shit. Like,
my favorite of his "What if anything, who if anyone" questions. Who if anyone was driving the ambulance? Well, I hope to goodness somebody was.
Right.
The same routine every time. His question formation is exactly the same. It's so repetitive. Did the jury react to the reveal that the film of the Sally Port was mirrored? I mean, I'm surely they must have spotted that there were jumps in the way people moved.
At this point,
time skips, or are they just not surprised anymore?
They're not. I mean, at this point, the jury wants to know. Each juror is probably thinking why. At least a few of them are saying to themselves, why is the prosecution trying to deceive us? Isn't that what the defense is supposed to be doing? And I guarantee you that's happening. Right. So, and the defense absolutely knows this. As soon as yesterday's or the day before Thursday's hearing ended, as soon as it ended and you see the camera go up to the fan, at that point, Yannetti walks up to me and Brian and goes, "This is beautiful." The jury now knows that the prosecution is trying to hide something from them and not us. They know that the prosecution's being deceptive, not us. This is great. And
I think anybody watching this with any sort of clarity has got to assume that that's the case, that they were deliberately playing that off as straightforward.
Right.
Oh, hey, Deets, come and join us if you want to, darling. I'm sure somebody can drop the link.
Well, I have to jump off because I have the fundraiser stream coming up.
Oh, the body language one.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming up. I really appreciate it, especially at such short knowledge.
It's my pleasure.
Short notice. And thank you.
I realized I was going to go over something else on my stream, and I realized I was like, oh shit, I saw you were live, and I was like, Pearl contacted me, and I responded, but I don't think I ever got a link, and I kept checking the email. And then I didn't
send the link. I was waiting to see. I didn't want you to feel pressured. I should have just sent it anyway.
It was fine. I felt like, oh my God, did I commit to it? I was like, did I commit to it and forget about it? Oh my God, I'm such a dick. But
I did say to people that you were already live, and I said to them, you need to go back and watch that live because it will be so worth it. And I can't wait to go back and watch it all. We've dropped your link several times. Seriously. If you don't like commentary, don't go over there. Go and watch a coverage of it that doesn't have any commentary from anyone. Don't come in and complain. The people who are watching it with Will are enjoying the commentary. That's why we're there. If you'd like that sort of atmosphere with all the details of what's actually going on, plus entertainment rather than just the bloody fan spinning round and round, please come over and watch it with us at the Glera. But if you're going to come in and moan about commentary, just save it. We don't want to know.
Right. And
I'm coming over there and I'm going to do all the moaning in the chat now.
And there's no competition. Like there's plenty of great channels. There's plenty of great channels covering it. And I encourage everybody, especially if they're an attorney, like, of course, go get an attorney's perspective on this case, please. You know, like that's the whole thing. The whole point of talking about this is to get to the truth. So, you know, I encourage everyone to, I mean, whatever your favorite creator is, if one of them happens to be covering this case, please go watch them please.
I like to double up. I like to watch it live over in Will's chat, and then I like to catch up the recaps with Runkle or Emily.
Runkle's awesome,
I do
and
too.
Melanie Little's
Ronco,
awesome.
Emily, all of them.
DUI guy is awesome. There's so many. I could sit here and name everybody, but
Yeah.
it'll take me forever.
Every
But-
time somebody mentions DUI guy, I just see his face on camera in the Depp trial. His response.
Yeah, he's a funny
dear.
dude, man. He's a funny dude. He's a no nonsense guy. I like him a lot. He's
That
really
was
funny.
a hell of a trial. Depp Heard really did wake me up to myself, because I was so, before going into it, no context, I was all absolutely believed the victim, poor Amber Heard, now they're dragging her through this. And then I watched the trial, and I watched every minute of that trial, all the evidence of her, the way she baited him and the way she recorded him and the way she took advantage of him, the way all her friends took advantage of him. I was horrified. I could not have been more wrong. Absolutely believe that Johnny Depp got the right verdict on that. And it's really shaken me up to going into things with preconceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to listen to. You just got to look at the evidence. You got to think objectively and just look at everything. You can't look at this case from any biased perspective. Whether you can't go into this already thinking Karen is innocent any more than you can go in there and think that she's guilty either. You just got to look at the facts and then make your determination. That's the only responsible way to do it. So. But guys, thank you so much for having me. I really
Thank you so much for joining us, Will. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Good luck with
And
the
I will be in
fundraising.
your chat being sarcastic and blocking Eliza if she comes in and complains.
Oh,
Take her
please,
rich
yeah.
away. Take her rich away.
Oh, yeah. I love that Pearl's in there. Thank you so much. All right, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good one.
Bye.
Love to Clubber.
Yeah, always.
He's the cutest dog. Clubber is just lovely. Seriously, I'm not sure that we can top that by doing anything else. Probably the only thing that I would say to give people a taste of the level that we are here, perhaps we'll play the Tits's advert so that people joining us get some idea of what kind of girls we are, and then call it a day. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I
That
think that's
sounds
a good
good to me, Pearl.
Right. This is an advert we made for one of the other jerks who goes by the name Tits McGee, and she's known and loved by all. And now I can't find it. Hang on. Oh, I've got it.
The Jerks are sponsored by the great taste of Tits McGee's dreamy desserts, because everyone loves tits. Our desserts are made with only the finest vanilla bean extract, natural fruit essences, and luxurious dairy cream. Juicy citrus, ripe bananas, rich roast coffee, and delectable chocolate. Because everyone loves the great taste of tits. Put a little jiggle back into your life. Tits McGee's dreamy desserts, because everyone loves tits.
Puppy. Sorry, my dog. He's pulling his
Perfect
tail again. I
timing.
was trying to get him to stop.
Perfect timing. There's Tanga, whose poor boyfriend has to dress as a puppy, and she's calling him there, and she was caught live on stream. Leave the poor boy alone. Yeah, we
yanking
make
that tail.
amusing little adverts. That's something that we do just to break the seriousness up. So be warned if you've signed up, because you know what you're getting. But then if you've come from Wills, you're probably not going to keel over at the thought of somebody making an advert about
Thank
tits.
goodness.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to say goodbye now, but we will be back in a couple of days. We're trying to get back on a regular schedule. I'm sure that I'll see most of you over in Will's chat. And justice for John O'Keefe. More than anything, justice for John O'Keefe.
Yeah.
And free Karen Reid, because they haven't proven their case, and I don't believe that they will. Do I have that still? Yes, the Defence Fund, if you would like to contribute to the exceptional but hideously expensive defence of Karen Reid, there is the fund that you can contribute. Any small bit was going to help. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
Good night, everyone.
You're embarrassing yourself. Go to bed.
Good night.